This guy farms immortal ogres for points. A monster that no matter how many times you kill it, it will be resurrected again the next day, stronger and faster. Thanks to his skill, decapitation, he drops them in one clean strike and treats the hunt like practice. With the points he earns, he blesses a withered tree into an emperor apple tree, and those apples sell for a crazy amount of money. But he wasn't always this strong. To understand the story better, let's go back to the very start. Earth was dying and lost every vitality it had to provide, and then a certain being revealed just what Earth needed. The absolute being advised to dispatch to another world, and with this, dispatchers, who are now regarded as heroes, left the Earth for other worlds. From the other worlds, dispatchers are able to bring back new things that are essential for humanity's survival. Our MC, Chansu, is working a trash gardening job, but he wishes that he could become a dispatcher too. After the day's work, he heads to the dispatcher reunion center where there is a bulk load of people trying to get information on their loved ones. He manages to get past all the other people who are there to reach the receptionist. The receptionist checks his log and realizes that Chansu doesn't have enough to pay for the investigation he is requesting. He tells him to come back when he finally has the required money. Chansu begs the man to at least give him some news, but he is pushed out of the way by the next customer. Chansu has no choice but to step away, and he walks back home decisively. Apparently, when he was little, his father was a top-ranked veteran also known as a returnee. They were always together, but when Earth's condition got worse, he was dispatched again. And since then, he hasn't seen his father again. After waiting for so long, his mother also went in search of her husband. But in the end, Chansu found himself all alone. He has grown so much that the memories he has with them have started to fade. He can't even picture their faces clearly anymore. Suddenly, a bright golden light hits the outside of his apartment, leaving a massive wave that sends him flying into the wall. He passes out cold, and when he wakes up, it's been hours. An emergency news alert popped up on his phone warning about the turbulence and flash caused by a returnee's re-entry. To make the situation worse, an S-rank returnee announces his retirement, shocking everyone. The S-rank dude talks about how he failed to protect the dispatchers who accompanied him. He also could not protect his god, and in the end, he returned alone, a failure. The dude says he can no longer dispatch because he has lost the ability and the qualification to do so. Apparently, the earthquake and the bright light were a result of his re-entry. With a broken voice, the dude announces his retirement while asking everyone to do their best to protect Earth. This is basically bad news for everyone because Earth's population has grown below 500 million, making it hard to raise high-ranking dispatchers. Chansu cannot believe that the dude failed at his mission, and he is also retiring from it. Just then, he hears a knock on the door, and he wonders who it could be. He stands, and he walks to the door wondering why he is getting a visit because it is very unusual. He opens the door and hears a voice calling him, but he doesn't see anyone standing at the door. Just as he is about to start believing that he is going crazy, the voice directs him to look down. Chansu stares down to see a cute talking bunny holding a tablet device and staring at him. This scares Chansu so hard that he falls on his arse, but the rabbit simply continues with his business, asking him if he is Chansu. The rabbit then tells Chansu to calm his nerves because he brought wonderful news for him. The rabbit smiles, congratulating Chansu on becoming a dispatcher. Chansu is shocked to hear this, forcing him to ask the rabbit again if he knows what he is saying. The rabbit admits that Chansu is probably confused, but he assures him that it doesn't take away the fact that he has been chosen. Since Chansu is acting suspiciously, the rabbit suggests that they move to another location. As they walk through an unfamiliar hallway, the rabbit asks Chansu if he has any special skills because most people have at least one. Chansu then replies that he is the highest in the trash league, which is why he is not even qualified to be a dispatcher. However, he is pretty good at trimming trees or flowers. The rabbit is shocked to his bones when he hears this, and Chansu is also surprised that the dude approached him without knowing that he is worthless. The rabbit then calms himself down, saying there is always a reason for everything. He assures Chansu that he might be worthless, but it doesn't change the fact that he was chosen. Chansu is completely blown away because he never expected to find himself in the dispatch center, which means a chance has finally come for him. They arrive at a very large door, and the rabbit suggests that they go inside to continue their conversation. Before the rabbit could continue with what he was saying, Chansu had reached the door. He tries opening the giant door, but for obvious reasons, the door won't budge. This is when the rabbit disgustingly asks him what he is doing with the door. The rabbit says the entrance they are going to use is to his right. Chansu doesn't want to believe his eyes when he realizes that the rabbit is pointing to a very tiny door, which is a perfect size for the rabbit, not freaking humans. The rabbit says he has never had issues using the door, and Chansu is forced to remind him that he is a freaking rabbit. Believing that the rabbit is nuts, Chansu says he has to leave, and the rabbit asks him if he is sure he is making the right decision. The rabbit reminds him that he has failed every test that he has taken, but in the end, a rare opportunity has come knocking on his door. The rabbit asks him if he thinks an opportunity like this will ever come in his lifetime again. The rabbit tries to tell Chansu that he is not trying to coerce him because he is free to leave if that is what he really wants. After hearing this, Chansu has no choice but to crawl through the small passage to follow the rabbit to his bright, tidy office. This is shocking to Chansu because he was expecting a tiny office. Rabbit then tells him that there is a world that is suited just for him. Chansu is confused by this, asking if there is a different world that fits each person. The rabbit informs him that there is a world called block-type land grabbing, and it has an event in progress. Chansu's eyes light up in shock when he sees this, and the rabbit assumes that he knows about it. But Chansu says it is his first time hearing about it. The rabbit mentions that the world is the most sought after in recent days. Apparently, the world has the unique feature of receiving the divine protection of a god. Chansu becomes more interested when he hears this because the returner also made mention of a god. The rabbit notices the change in expression, and he assures him that choosing him has no connection to the recent event. Chansu then asks the rabbit what type of god he is talking about, and the rabbit mentions that gods are assigned on a random basis. But since Chansu is his favorite person, he might as well give him the chance to choose what god he wants. The rabbit then brings out 3 cards, asking Chansu if he is ready to choose. Chansu is confused by this because he doesn't even know which of the cards is good or bad. The rabbit reminds him that this opportunity might not come again, and Chansu agrees with him. Remembering his father, Chansu is pissed that he is even hesitating in the first place. Chansu then chooses his card, and a visual representation of the god appears right in front of him, shocking him. This scares the living daylight out of him. And when he stares at the card that he chose, he realizes that it is the god of negation with a 44% rate. The rabbit urges him not to be a coward because everything he just saw is nothing but a dramatic effect. With his heart almost out of his body, Chansu is forced to ask just what kind of god would require an effect that almost sends him to the afterlife. In addition, Chansu doesn't think the god is the right choice for him because the name alone spells trouble. Chansu gets back on his feet and nervously asks the rabbit if there is a chance that he can draw the cards again. The rabbit assures him that he can, ultimately shocking him. Chansu quickly draws the card, and just like before, he pulls the god of negation again. Chansu is pissed, and he starts assuming that the draws are a scam because there is no way he is getting the same god every single time. The rabbit then tells him that there is nothing wrong with the cards. Chansu is surprised to see the rabbit change his expression, and then he tells him that he has just one last chance to draw a card. He urges Chansu to choose properly this time around. Chansu is frustrated, and he hopes to just pick anything, which is basically not the god of negation. He draws another card, and this time a bright green light appears, and Chansu's face brightens up with hope. This time around, he pulled a card, which is the goddess of abundance, but it has a less than 1% probability. He's about to lose interest when he sees a visual representation of the goddess, and, boy, she is freaking hot. Even the rabbit can see the practical imagination on Chansu's face. The rabbit smiles, asking Chansu if he would like another chance. This shocks Chansu because the dude literally just told him he was giving him the last chance. Chansu then asks the rabbit what would happen if he decides on the current card, and the rabbit lets him know that he would have to depart immediately. Chansu is shocked to hear this, and the rabbit asks him if there is any reason for him to hesitate. He tells Chansu that he has a rare chance to go from being a dispatcher to becoming a returner. The rabbit starts feeding his head with sweet imaginations of how people will celebrate him for being a hero. The rabbit tells him that being a dispatcher will give him a very good life, which is 10 times better than the one he is currently living. Chansu realizes that the rabbit is actually right because his life is basically worthless in the first place. He makes his decision, and the system informs him that he has been chosen to serve the goddess of abundance. The image of the goddess is shown to him, and it is just what he imagined in his head. Chansu smiles, believing that he would be able to do anything if he were with such a goddess. Chansu then asks the rabbit where he is supposed to go. The rabbit opens a portal, saying it is time for them to go. But just then, he pushes Chansu straight for the portal. Chansu fears, asking the rabbit if it is really safe for him to enter the portal. The rabbit teases him that the portal is beautiful, but to Chansu, he is staring at an obvious death trap. Nonetheless, he has no intentions of backing down as he plans to become very successful to show his haters that they are trash. While he is busy thinking about how he is going to become successful, the rabbit pushes him into the portal. Just then, a voice scolds the rabbit for directly intervening in the matter when he knows that it is quite forbidden. The rabbit replies that they have no choice because Chansu is the only one who can help. While getting sucked into the portal, Chansu spots the loading screen and a tip pops up telling him the percentage signifies the size of the god's faction. This shocks Chansu to his bones because he thought the percentage was a probability, but it turned out to be something worse. Chansu finally makes it to his new world with the pain that he is just learning about something so crucial. He looks around to see that everywhere is not far from a wasteland. In addition to the goddess not having a faction, he has found himself in a doomed land. Seeing this, tears fall out of his eyes, and he concludes that he is done for. Chansu was expecting an abundant land, but everything he is staring at is nothing but a wasteland. The system window pops up again, welcoming Chansu to the world of digging. It tells Chansu that he is the apostle of the goddess, and he is required to secure as many land rights as possible through digging. Before he starts doing anything, he thinks of looking around first. He figures out that he needs to find the goddess, and he suddenly runs into an old shabby sickle. He wonders if someone used it and then threw it away. Since he is a gardener, the sickle matches his hand really perfectly. Suddenly, feels an overwhelming presence behind him, and fear grips him that a monster is about to consume him. Fear creeps through his body when he realizes that he hasn't even met the goddess yet, and a monster is about to make a meal of him. Chansu concludes that death is the last thing he wants at the moment. He decides to threaten the monster by swinging his sickle. He turns around and swings it really hard, only for him to see that there is no monster but a cute hamster staring at him. Chansu crouches to stare at the hamster, and he can clearly see that it doesn't harbor any sense of hostility toward him. Suddenly, it crosses his mind that he might get a bonus for taking out the hamster, and the hamster screams out its lungs in fear. Chansu smiles because he has successfully messed with the hamster. He decides to let it live as long as it doesn't cause him any problems. Suddenly, the hamster turns around to leave. The hamster stops at a distance, beckoning Chansu to follow him. Chansu then runs after the hamster, which is pretty fast for its size. Chansu wonders where they are going until they reach a stream, where Chansu wastes no time fetching water into his bottle to drink. He feels very refreshed, and he asks the hamster if he knows where the goddess is staying. The hamster tries responding to him, but their communication technique differs from each other. The hamster continues moving again, and Chansu follows it, waiting to see where the hamster is leading him. Moments later, they arrive at a huge tree that has dried up like the trees on Earth. Chansu steps on a whittled ginseng, shocking him. He wonders what a ginseng is doing in such a shabby place, but the hamster suddenly grabs the ginseng away from Chansu. Chansu is confused as he believes that the ginseng is for the hamster. Just then, the notification comes on, telling Chansu that he has discovered the goddess. Chansu believes that the system is glitching because he has not seen the goddess anywhere around. Chansu is rambling about this when the hamster grabs his leg, and he assumes that the hamster is messing with him. He grabs the hamster, telling it that he is busy and not ready to play. However, the hamster's expression tells Chansu something important that he has been missing. In the most unexpected surprise, the wilted ginseng is the freaking goddess. Chansu doesn't want to believe this because the goddess he saw was pretty bountiful, and there is no way she has shriveled into an ugly ginseng root. Since he is not ready to believe his eyes, the hamster brings out a magnifying glass for him to look through, and this is when he finally accepts reality. He holds his head in pain because the land grabbing and the percentage that he saw was nothing but a foreshadowing of his future situation. Chansu remembers that the numbers were going up when he was drawing the cards, and this basically means the god's influence was growing then. Chansu cannot believe that the god of negation was actually a good card, and it was hard to believe since it was coming up pretty often. Chansu wonders if the goddess shriveled away because her influence went down completely. Chansu stares at the goddess, wondering why she's not waking up. He starts to fear that he has completely killed the goddess when he steps on her, but the hamster just stares at him like some really dumb dude. It then dawns on Chansu that he might get the goddess to wake up if he gives her some water. He pours water on her, and surprisingly, a bright green effect emerges from the ginseng's body. This tells Chansu that the water is working, and he proceeds to give her some more water. He drowns the goddess in water, ultimately restoring the goddess's sense. The goddess almost drowns in the water, and she starts wishing Chansu would stop before it is too late. The goddess finally comes to life, and Chansu celebrates his aggressive CPR skills. The hamster is also glad that its master is back to life. Just then, Chansu bows to the goddess, offering his greetings and telling her that he is her apostle. The goddess manages to sit up to look at her apostle. Chansu is totally confused about what to do until the Windows notification pops up, telling him that he can become stronger by using his skills. Chansu is surprised because he didn't know that there were skills readily available for him. He sees one of the skills, which is the goddess's blessing. And even though there is no description of what the skill does, Chansu assumes that it is for making crops beautiful. Just then, he applies it, and he realizes that the blessing is called decapitation. This shocks Chansu since decapitation basically means cutting off a head. He doesn't want to imagine himself cutting heads around just to live an abundant life. However, he concludes that there is no way the goddess of abundance would grant him such a violent skill. Chansu turns to the goddess to ask her if he is truly meant to cut somebody's head off, and the goddess's reaction just confuses him. He then concludes that there is nothing else but to decapitate someone. Chansu starts thinking about the several things that this might entail, and then it suddenly dawns on him that the hamster might be ripe for decapitation. The hamster is busy celebrating the revival of the goddess, not knowing that Chansu is staring at him with the most evil eyes ever. The hamster turns around to see Chansu fully armed and ready to turn it into two pieces. Just before the sickle can hit, the hamster makes a run for it. Chansu continues his chase, and realizing that there is no way out, the hamster hides behind the goddess. Chansu calmly tells the hamster that he is not happy with what he is about to do, but it is all for the goddess' sake. Suddenly, the hamster and the goddess start to panic, and when Chansu turns around, he sees a terrifying creature standing behind him. Chansu also notices that the hamster has jumped in front of the goddess, and this is when it dawns on him that the hamster wasn't a monster after all. Chansu admits his mistake and figures out that he has to make amends for his mistake by defeating the real monster standing in front of him. However, the question of whether he can do it remains a thing. Nonetheless, Chansu is a brave dude, and he charges at the monster with the sickle in hand. And thanks to the decapitation skill, he can see exactly where he needs to cut. He activates the decapitate skill, and he leaps at the monster, swinging the sickle so hard that it takes down the monster in one strike. The hamster and the goddess are left in shock when they see this. Chansu casually returns to the goddess like he didn't just do something pretty crazy. Chansu then bows to the hamster for mistaking him for a monster and almost sending him 6 feet underground. He asks the hamster to forgive him, and the hamster smiles before giving Chansu a thumbs up to let him know that he is not holding grudges against him. Chansu is happy to see this, and he gives the hamster a name, Hamstel. The name sounds so good to the hamster that it starts to blush hard from it. Just then, the Windows notification pops up again, telling Chansu that the head of the monster will automatically be transported due to the skill's effect. This is when Chansu finally learns the name of the monster that he killed, which is the immortal ogre. Because he has defeated one ogre, a kill count also appears to show him that he can kill as many of them as he wants. Chansu is surprised that the monster is known as the immortal ogre when there is nothing really immortal about it. The system comes up with another notification, telling Chansu that the transported offering now belongs to the goddess. Chansu turns to look at the goddess, and he realizes that the goddess has become even fresher than before. It dawns on Chansu that if he continues working hard and terminating monsters, it will, in turn, help the goddess return to her best form. Motivated to see the goddess's hot body, Chansu runs off to find more monsters to kill. He soon runs into a horde of immortal ogres. He gets another tip that there are unidentified points that can only be used by the world system, which means that they cannot be traded between individuals. Chansu is surprised because he didn't know when he acquired the points. Nonetheless, it is a good thing for him, and he figures out that getting rid of the ogres is the next thing on his list. Chansu is glad that he can wield the decapitation skill because it makes killing the ogres easy for him. Chansu dashes toward the ogres, activating the decapitation skill, and he cuts them down with just one swing. Another tip pops on, telling him that he can acquire points by killing monsters. Chansu sees this as a go-ahead to kill as many monsters as he can because the system just gave him the go-ahead. Chansu has defeated 4 immortal ogres already, and he thinks of killing about 100 just for the feel of it. After defeating the first wave of monsters, Hamstal celebrates on Chansu's shoulder as if he were the one who defeated the monsters. Chansu then asks why the monster is called an immortal ogre when they die too easily for something that should be eternal. Since no one can answer his question yet, he figures out that he will get the answer to his question if he continues defeating the monsters. Chansu returns to the tree to find the goddess looking even more beautiful than before. Chansu smiles because the effect is coming in faster than he even thought. He is excited to see the goddess return to her original form. The goddess then points to the huge tree, leaving Chansu confused about what he is supposed to do. It then dawns on him that the goddess is asking to be lifted into the tree. Chansu helps the goddess up, but the goddess beckons to him. The system then tells him that he can use the blessing of abundance, but every skill consumes points. Chansu touches the tree and activates the blessing of abundance. He pours all of his skill points into it, and with the help of the skill, he makes the tree bountiful again. By the time he is done, he is surprised to see that the tree is an apple tree and there are apples hanging everywhere. He plucks one of the apples that looks really giant. Even though he has not seen an apple before, something tells him that it shouldn't be that big. Even though he is tempted to munch on the apple, he decides to offer the first harvest to the goddess. The goddess accepts the fruit, and to his shock, the goddess absorbs the apple in seconds. This leaves Chansu questioning the possibility of what he just witnessed. He realizes that the goddess is quite powerful and figures out that getting on the goddess's bad side is not a good thing for him. Chansu leaps onto the tree to fetch a bunch of apples so that he and Hamstall can both eat. Chansu figures out that he has to be pretty strong because the goddess he serves is not one to joke around with. Chansu munches on the apple, and he is surprised at just how delicious it is. While he is quietly enjoying his apple breakfast, the goddess, on the other hand, is wondering how Chansu is able to defeat several monsters in a single day. In addition to this, he was able to bring such a giant tree to life in just a day. A cold feeling runs through the goddess's body as she starts to wonder where such a monstrous boy like Chansu emerged from. Taking a deep dive into Abundance's backstory, she was in charge of food, and she was a force to reckon with because of the high-quality agricultural products that she offers. However, when the god of corruption started absorbing other factions, Abundance had no choice but to run away because corruption's power was getting too massive. To survive, Abundance abandoned her trade and resorted to hunting monsters, but her forces were unfit for combat. Because of this, they could not win a single battle, and as a last resort, they modified their skill to make something else. However, this didn't guarantee Abundance's survival. Basically, the decapitating skill that Chansu thinks is for cutting off monsters' heads is actually a skill to help Abundance's subordinates bring back the heads of dead animals or monsters. Because her subordinates were bad at combat, they could only do their best. Just by staring at Chansu, the goddess is crippled with fear, because he is completely different from what she envisioned. She wonders why Chansu chose her, but nonetheless, she comes to the conclusion that Chansu now belongs to her. Chansu is trying to get another apple fruit when the goddess clings to his leg, and this scares Chansu, who believes that the goddess is trying to absorb him. But the goddess is only trying to hug him to thank him for everything so far. Later on, the goddess falls asleep, and Chansu lays her on the altar to sleep, but a loud thunder strikes out of nowhere. Chansu fears that this will wake the goddess, but to his surprise, the goddess remains fast asleep. Just then, Chansu realizes that apples alone won't sustain him. And at that moment, the system informs him that the delivery event is now in progress. Chansu is surprised to see that something like this exists. However, to make a delivery, he has to be able to contact those back on Earth. However, he notices that Hamstall is also tired, and he lays him beside the goddess. He even covers the two with leaves to serve as a blanket. Meanwhile, at the reincarnation trading company, Hasigen, the apostle of reincarnation, bursts into her boss's office to scold him for giving him more work, even though she is already busy as it is. It turns out that they have gotten the order to deliver apples. The order also states that there is no money involved, which means that they are going to barter apples in return for goods. Hei Sujin screams at her boss asking if she did something wrong, and he decides to punish her with this trash of a job, but her boss says no. Her boss tells her that the business trip to get the apples is actually good for her because she won't have to work, and this will serve as a break for her. Her boss tells her that staying at the office means more work for her, and he urges her to use the trip to clear her head a bit. Hizujin argues with him, saying there is no one else to send on the trip, which is why he is sending her. Her boss chuckles nervously because she might be right with her deduction. Her boss urges her to get a move on because she might just discover something lucky on the trip. He waves her goodbye, hoping that something good comes out of the trip. Hasujin checks out the order logs and realizes that there are a bunch of deliveries that she has to do, and she hopes that it is worth it or else there is going to be a big problem. Meanwhile, Chansu has been gathering apples in preparation for delivery. While Chansu is gathering the apples, Hamstel is having a field day with them. Chansu soon finds him munching on the apples, and he grabs him, telling him to stop messing around with the apples. He tells him that the apples are for trading because they will be meeting with someone later in the day. Since the delivery person will be coming a long way, Chansu figures out that acting all cool on the first day will leave a good impression on whoever the person is. According to the information he got when signing the delivery event, he found out that the world is truly divided into blocks, and the Block Territory Conquest Grand Summon event is in progress. Even though it appears as a regular land, there is a wall at the edge, and to move to another block, a movement ticket is needed. Chansu figures out that there is really nothing around him, and it would take him a whole week to reach the nearest village. Chansu is glad that the delivery only takes 2 days. Even though it is quite fast, Chansu doesn't care as long as he gets his sleeping bags pretty fast. In addition, he ordered a cushion for the goddess to sleep on. Chansu is aiming to raise the goddess's affection to the maximum to make sure he doesn't get on her bad side. Chansu also notices that the immortal ogres have been showing up on their own since the day before, which is a good thing for him. He has finally figured out in the name that the immortal is more or less a reviving term. Nonetheless, Chansu doesn't care as long as he gets to terminate as many of them as he can while farming for points. While battling it out with the monsters, he almost gets crushed from behind, but he manages to dodge. This is when it dawns on him that the monsters have gotten slightly faster. He assumes that the monsters grow stronger just like skills do. Even with this, Chansu feels no danger coming from them whatsoever. While taking out the monsters, Hasujin is watching from the sky, and she has the same reaction as everyone who has witnessed Chansu take on the monsters. All she sees is a crazy, overpowered dude who has monsters for breakfast. Apparently, the immortal ogre was once considered the main hunting target for most dispatchers because it provided more points than regular monsters. However, no matter how many times it was killed, it always resurrected the next day, stronger than before. Even if the dispatcher moved their block, it would continue coming after them, which makes it the most persistent monster. In addition to this, it usually leaves a curse on its target, giving it the chance to wear them down until they eventually collapse. In the end, it became a creature that everyone avoids. That same creature is what Chansu is cutting down like tissue. Hasujin starts wondering if Chansu is so reckless that he doesn't even care about the monster's retaliation. Hasujin also notices that Chansu is not even purifying the defeated monsters. With everything she has seen, she assumes that Chansu is a swordsmaster, but then she wonders why a swordsmaster would be picking apples out of all the things that he can pick. Hasujin concludes that Chansu is not a smart swordsmaster, but to avoid his wrath, she believes that it would be best to deal with him in the most gentle way possible. After taking down the horde of immortal ogres, Chansu realizes that he has gained a ton of points and that it is increasing exponentially too. Because of the blessing, an apple now costs 1,000 points. Chansu figures out that hitting 100 is not going to be a problem for him. He had been wondering why there was a shrine in the region in the first place, but it appears to be a jackpot for him. Just then, Hasujin approaches him, and she humbly bows to him. She introduces herself, revealing that she is from the trading company and that she has come with Chansu's delivery. Chansu excitedly shakes Haseo-jin's hands, saying he is actually impressed that she managed to find the block on her first try. Deep down, Haseo-jin is scared because Chansu is a powerful dude, and she has to be very careful not to get on his bad side. Just then, she spots the hamster, and this catches her attention because he looks so squishy that she wants to hug him. Chansu notices the eagerness on her face, and he asks her if she is feeling unwell, but she replies that she is feeling good. Unknown to Chansu, Haseo-jin is just eager to touch the hamster. Chansu then tells Haseo-jin to follow him, so he can lead her to where the apples are. Upon arriving there, the smell of the apples alone catches her attention, and she is forced to say this out. Chansu agrees with her, saying the apples grew really well. Haseo-jin cannot believe that the large tree standing in front of her is an apple tree. Chansu plucks one of the apples, and he asks Haseo-jin if she would be willing to eat the apple. Haseo-jin collects the apples, and the massive sizes of the apples shock her. However, she is not expecting anything great because when a fruit gets too big, the sweetness suffers a backlash. She expects to be disappointed, but the moment she bites out of it, she is sent into a state of unimaginable tastefulness. Hasujin realizes that the apple is quite sweet and the acidity is also balanced out. She figures out that the apple would sell for nothing less than 100,000 gold because of how sweet it is. Haesejin then asks Chansu to confirm if he placed a 2,000 gold price tag on the apples, and Chansu says yes. Haesejin lets Chansu know that the price he placed on the apple is quite absurd, and Chansu thinks she is saying the apples are too expensive. Chansu nervously asks the lady how much she would be willing to buy the apples. Haesejin shocks Chansu when she tells him that he should be getting at least 20,000 gold per apple. Chansu almost loses his mind when Haesejin reveals that it could even get over 30,000 if he supplies them to a department store. Chansu cannot believe his ears. And even though Haesejin could have defrauded him, she doesn't think it would be nice to lose a potential long-term customer. In addition, she is not ready to die just yet because she believes that this will be her fate if Chansu ever finds out. Haseljin then tells Chansu that the apples are not just apples, but the very first type of apple that has gotten a unique flavor she has not tasted before. Haesejin confesses that the apple holds more value than any regional specialty that she knows. To avoid overstretching things, she suggests that they just put it at 20,000 gold in the meantime. She brings out a formal contract telling Chansu that the other balance will also be settled once he signs the contract. Chansu collects the pen, and he looks through the contract to see what it entails. Once he sees that it is something favorable to him, he smiles. However, he suggests that they adjust a particular section of the contract. Haesejin is surprised when she realizes that the company's share percentage has gone up. Chansu lets her know that it wasn't a mistake, but he did that because he would like to build a long-lasting relationship with Haesejin. In addition, Haesejin was honest with him about how much the apples are worth. Chansu stretches his hand forward to shake her, and this shocks her. She then thanks Chansu for accepting the contract, and she hands over the items that he ordered. Among the things he ordered are seeds, food supplies, and cooking tools. In addition, there is a familiar egg, which is a commemorative gift from the trading company. Haesejin assures him that it will help him with his farming. She hands over the eggs to Chansu and says he might not even need them because he's already raising one. Chansu is surprised because he can't see the said familiar that he is raising. Haesejin then points to Hamstall, believing that Hamstall is Chansu's familiar. Haesejin then tells him that the more points he pours into the egg, the stronger it is going to be when the familiar hatches. However, she urges him to be careful because if he overdoes it, the egg will crack, leading to an automatic failure. She adds that Chansu should stop once the egg starts to tremble. After the instructions, Chansu tells Haesejin that he might just have to try it to get the perfect feel for it. Haesejin asks about the expected harvest and schedule for the apples, and Chansu says one day should be enough. This shocks Haesejin because they are going to be getting daily supplies of apples. After their brief, long, boring conversation, they work out the schedule, the numbers, and the visit dates. After everything has been sorted out, they conclude the first part of their deal. After Haesejin is gone, Chansu walks up to the goddess to thank her for staying hidden when Haesejin was around. Chansu looked at the several supplies that he got and couldn't believe that the sales of apples were lucrative. Nonetheless, he knows that he owes it all to the goddess. Just then, he spots the goddess hugging the eggs, and he realizes that he might have to hatch the eggs sooner. However, he is going to need more points if he is going to do this. To do this, he figures out that killing more monsters is the way forward. Chansu is proud of how things have come so far, but he is not delusional enough not to know that there will be difficulties ahead. Even with the thought of this, Chansu is not scared because he is built to face challenges. When Haesejin returns to the trading company, she tells her boss everything that she saw. She tells her boss that Shursun is definitely Korean, but she assumes that he is a member of the combat factions. Her boss is surprised that a combat-oriented person is able to raise such a good bulk of apples. Haseljin reveals that Chansu took down undead monsters with just a rusty sickle, and he only targeted their heads. Haesejin's boss believes that the dude might be aiming to become a swordsmaster by putting himself in a tough situation, just like a dude Rohan did. Haesejin's boss then says it would be advisable for them to keep Chansu hidden, rather than assign guards to his position, and Haesejin agrees with this. While saying this, the dude doesn't stop munching on the sliced apples in front of him until Haesejin grabs his hand, reminding him that they are supposed to eat them together. Back in the world of abundance, Chansu is already pouring points into the eggs to try and hatch them. He wonders if he is going to get a cute or strong monster from the eggs. Just then, the egg cracks, leaving a bright light, and Chansu believes that an SS rank familiar is going to step out of the egg. Chansu's entire smile fades away when he sees a chick popping out of the egg. He cannot believe that all the hype was just for a big chicken when he was hoping to get a worker. He starts wondering what to do with the chick, and the first thing his mind goes to is to raise the chick to eat it. However, he is hesitant because he cannot just cook and eat a chick that he poured 120,000 points into. Because he is trying not to get too attached, he decides to give it the name Ari. Just when he is trying to get familiar with the Ari, the other egg starts to hatch too. Just like before, Chansu is hyped as he believes that this will come out to be a worker. However, his face crashes in disappointment when a pig emerges from the egg, and Chansu wastes no time giving the pig the name Doji. Chansu is extremely disappointed, leaving him to wonder why he is getting only ingredients. He was told that he was going to get a familiar, but at this point, he thinks he has been scammed. Just then, Ari and Doji walk up to the goddess to greet her, and the goddess urges the two to forgive her for failing to protect them to the very end. The two also apologize for not being able to serve their goddess the way they should have served her. The goddess appreciates their honesty, but tells them that there is something they need to be careful of, and this is her apostle. She tells the two that Chansu doesn't know that they are her retainers, and he might just sell them off if they prove to be useless to him. To make it worse, he might even eat them, and the two can feel the scary aura coming from Chansu, which makes the goddess's claim valid. The goddess urges the two to be on their best behavior until Chansu is able to obtain the communication skill. The two agree with the goddess, saying it would be better for them to just observe as it is. The next morning, Chansu heads out as usual, and his main targets are the undead monsters. Doji and Ari wake up early in the morning to hear commotion everywhere. The sleep disappears from their eyes when they see Chansu running about, cutting down undead monsters. This is when it finally dawns on the two that Chansu is pretty dangerous, and the goddess was not joking when she told them to be on their best behavior. Ari tells Doji that Chansu was staring at them in the weirdest way, and Doji panics when he remembers this. Just as he finishes taking out the undead monsters, Ari and Doji appear with a towel on their head. They praise Chansu for the hard work and tell him to clean up with the towel. The two have seen Chansu in action, and they have finally understood what the goddess told them about being useful. Chansu thanks the two for being thoughtful, and after cleaning up, he offers them an apple. Doji rushes toward the plate while Ari is trying to act like he is not a glutton. Chansu is happy to feed the two because he once heard that grape-fed pork always tastes better. Ari tries to stop Doji from eating, so he won't grow into Chansu's desired flavor. However, Ari also gets drawn in by the flavor of the apple because of the amount of points that Chansu poured into it. Nonetheless, he manages to control himself. Chansu then offers him grains, and he jumps on the grains without wasting time. To him, he is making the right decision because he is never going to grow into fried chicken like Doji. After this, Chansu moves over to farming. He has Doji dig the ground while Ari plants the black bean seeds. Chansu then covers the ground and gives the seeds water before adding the blessing of abundance. In no time, Chansu has a farm with healthy plants covering it. Chansu holds one of the seeds in his hands, and the moment Ari spots the seed, he locks in on it. He rushes toward Chansu, but he hides the seed, telling him that the first harvest must be given to the goddess. Chansu gives the goddess the seed as usual, and she absorbs it in the most weird way just like she always does. Chansu then tells Ari and Doji that it is time they eat because they are going to plant potatoes later. Unlike before, Ari consumes as much food as Doji. The two end up looking like inflated balloons, and Ari believes that he is done for because he couldn't hold back his hunger. On the other hand, Chansu is just happy that the two are eating well, and this serves as a motivation for him to plant more crops that they are going to enjoy. Just then, his mind crosses the apples, and he hopes that they are selling well on the market. At the store, Hazujin's boss notices that the apples are the only items left for sale. A lot of people have gathered, but none of them are ready to buy, which is expected. He had even decorated the apple and packaged it well to make it more pleasing, but people don't think a single apple is worth 200,000 gold. He is left scratching his head in frustration because he has no idea how to convince people that the apple is actually delicious. He is pretty sure that everyone will change their minds after just a bite, but the problem is getting them to have a bite. Suddenly, he hears someone purchasing the apples. He rushes to the attendant to ask him what just happened, and the attendant reveals that all of the apples are sold out. He doesn't want to believe this since there was still a bulk load of it some minutes ago. The attendant reveals that someone tasted one and then bought everything. The signature on the payment slip says Rohan, and this is when it dawns on the manager that the person who just patronized them and bought out the apples is none other than Rohan, the pioneer of the handicap training method. Rohan is also known as the unrivaled swordsmaster, which makes him a big deal, and the manager admits that they have struck gold. This ends up making the news big time, and everyone believes that the apples are what Rohan ate to become a swordsmaster. Haesejin's boss, Ryuwoo, starts getting calls from everywhere. Everyone wants a box or 100 boxes of the miracle apple. A week after Chansu arrived in the abundance world, he admits that he has been living life greatly. He has potatoes with him and he is ready to cook. While cooking the tasty potatoes, Doji is already holding his leg to let him know that he is interested. Chansu simply reveals that he is not making the potato for him because he just finished eating his own meal. Nonetheless, he still gives him some to eat. Moments later, Haesujin shows up and she is surprised to see that all of Chansu's familiars have hatched. To Hosujin, she is staring at a bunch of cute teddies that she can hug to feel better. Meanwhile, Hamstel and the other two are covering the goddess to make sure that she is not exposed to Hosujin's glaring eyes. Chansu then asks Hosujin why she came. Haesujin mentions that she has some good news for him. She brings out sales receipts to tell Chansu that all the apples sold out and they all sold out for the tagged amount too. Chansu holds his head in shock and amazement because everything went off in just 2 days. Haesujin tells him that the most unbelievable part of everything is that everyone now wants a taste of the apple. Chansu is blown away because he never saw apple as something that would command so much money. He remembers that apples were usually sold for less than 1,000 gold. Because he's getting 30% of the profits, Chansu realizes that he is going to make at least 60,000 gold per apple. With a simple calculation, he realizes that he would have gained 3 million in one day if he managed to sell 50 apples. Chansu's mind blows out of the roof when he realizes that an annual profit of 1 billion is coming his way. Chansu is glad that he is on the right trajectory, and he believes that with this, he might be able to find a clue about his parents. Chansu tells Hazujin that he is not a mood killer, but he asks her how long she thinks the hype over the Emperor apples will last. Chansu knows that the apples are currently popular, but he also knows that there is no way they will continue selling for that huge amount in the future. Hazujin then assures Chansu that she understands his concern, but lets him know that 100 apples a day to a target audience of 1 million means they will still be in business for 27 years. Chansu is shocked to hear this, and he assumes that it is an overestimation. Haesujin then tells Chansu that he has nothing to worry about. Hazujin then asks him if he has thought about increasing his apple production. Chansu smiles nervously, saying he has grown other crops too, and it will be nice if she tastes them. He assures her that they are as tasty as the apples. Hazujin's eyes light up like a goblin when she hears this. Chansu then tells her to sit tight while he serves her potatoes first. Haesujin takes a bite out of the potatoes, and she melts in sheer joy at how sweet they are. She starts imagining all the good things that will come out of the potato if managed right. Just then, Chansu shows up with pancakes and fries. Haesujin shed tears as she consumed the food in front of her. She mentions that the potato fries can be considered a main dish instead of a side dish. Chansu then finishes the combo with roasted sweet potatoes. The moment he serves this, Doji and Ari go crazy, demanding that he give them too. Chansu then suggests that they all eat together. Chansu notices that Ari is looking skinny, and there is one explanation for this. It is basically because Doji has been stealing Ari's food, preventing him from eating properly. Hamstal jumps on the table to eat with Haseljin, and Chansu asks Haesujin for her thoughts on the potatoes because he plans on selling them too. Haesujin thanks Chansu for the delicious meal and then asks if there is a way he can grow the crops and also increase apple production. Chansu replies that it would be difficult since he is going to need more points. At the same time, Chansu doesn't think it would be wise for him to use all of his points on farming. Haesujin lets Chansu know that his efforts are appreciated, but she urges him to focus more on apples. Haesujin mentions that all of the apostles are Korean, and the culture of the world is built on this. Haesujin says the food is amazing, but lets Chansu know that it is hard to charge a premium price for crops alone. Haesujin says the crops won't be as profitable as apples even if people start to demand them. Haesujin goes on her knees, begging Chansu to consider apple production as his primary assignment. Realizing that there is no changing her mind, Chansu asks her if 100 apples a day will be enough, and her eyes light up when she hears this. She thanks Chansu for reconsidering and putting her suggestion into the books. The next day, Chansu steps out to hunt monsters as usual. Doji asks Ari if it is important that they follow Chansu every time he steps out, and Ari screams at Doji telling him that they are the only ones who can keep watch because Hamstel is basically useless. Unknown to them, Chansu is actually wondering why the two keep following him everywhere, and he assumes that they are combat-type familiars. Chansu doesn't think there is any way actual familiars will be pretty useless to the point that the only thing they can offer is to eat. His conviction soon goes down the drain when he sees the two getting chased down by an undead monster. Chansu blames himself for thinking the two are worth the hype he was giving them in the first place. Just then, Doji trips, giving the undead monster the chance to close down on him. Chansu tries to reach him, but the distance is just too much for him. Chansu tries getting the monster's attention by screaming, but even this doesn't work. Chansu swings his sickle, but even this proves to be useless because the range is short. Suddenly, the monster dies, shocking Chansu because he knows that the sickle didn't reach the monster. Just then, it dawns on him that the skill might have been upgraded and the skill range has increased. Chansu tries it out by staying at a distance and swinging the sickle at the monsters. With just one strike, he takes out multiple targets, and the window pops up, alerting him about the newly obtained range of the skill. In addition, he gets a new skill, mass decapitation, and this shocks Chansu, but he figures out that this would allow him to handle more monsters. Chansu goes on a rampage, cutting down several monsters, and this scares Ari and Doji. The two immediately run back to the goddess, who is shocked to see them back so soon. Ari tells the goddess that Chansu might have gotten stronger, but at the same time, obtaining the communication skill is also important. The goddess then urges her retainers to calm down because she never granted such a skill. Doji then tells the goddess that the name of the new skill is mass decapitation, and this name itself shocks the goddess. Fear crept through her body as she thought about this because it was her first time hearing it. Even the goddess has no idea what type of person Chansu is at this point. She assumes that he is a grim reaper sent from hell. Just then, the goddess tells the two that she might actually have an idea of what is happening. Doji hears this, and his head goes into overdrive, believing that the goddess was truly the one who bestowed the skill upon Chansu. Ari is forced to slap Doji for being so dumb, and he tells him to hear what the goddess has to say before coming up with his trash ideas. Ari then asks the goddess what she thinks happened, and the goddess replies that the apostle skill has evolved. The goddess mentions that decapitation skill is a modified version of the harvesting skill. She reminds them that the evolved skill allowed the user to engage in a wide range of harvesting, just the same way that the goddess thinks Chansu's skill has evolved into mass decapitation. Ari is surprised to hear this, and he mentions that this was something first-year apostles only could do. The goddess agrees, saying this is exactly why Chansu is pretty scary. However, the goddess thinks he is a thankful dude, which makes things a bit better. The goddess says Chansu might be growing at an exponential rate, but it is all thanks to his growth that they are safe to some extent. The goddess then says she will give Chansu the communication skill once he returns. Moments later, Chansu returns, and the goddess excitedly gives Chansu the chance to pick between two new skills, since it is against the rules to define an apostle's path. Chansu stares at the status screen to see that he has two skills that he can choose from, which are the promise of abundance and communication. The goddess is confident and assured that Chansu is going to pick the communication skill. The goddess can't wait to tell Chansu to stay away from danger, and also to thank him for everything he has done so far. After taking a minute to think about his choices, Chansu picks the promise of abundance skill, shocking the goddess, who least expected this. Before making his decision, Chansu had stared at the screen for some time to know which skill would work best. He stared at the communication skill and realized that it was just a skill that allowed him to communicate with plants and animals. The horror of hearing Ari and the others scream at him whenever they are pissed made him realize that he is going to have a really hellish life if he picks the communication skill. Since there is a saying that ignorance is bliss, he decides that choosing the communication skill would be a wrong move. This is why he went for the promise of abundance instead. And the moment he picked the promise of abundance skill, he realized that everyone is pretty gloomy. He now has two skills on the board, but just like before, there is no description for the skill. Chansu then picks out an apple with the intention of giving it to the goddess as a first offering. But to his surprise, the goddess turns her back to him, and she starts to cry. On the status screen, Chansu learns that depending on how he uses his skill, the points will return accordingly. Chansu wonders why the goddess is rejecting the apple that he gave her. In an attempt to cheer everyone up, he pinches Hamstel's cheek, and this cheers the hamster up a bit. He also rubs Doji's belly to tickle him, but to his surprise, the points are not coming back. Just when he is thinking of what might be wrong, Haiso-jin shows up in a hurry, telling him that he has to claim the block and defend it. This shocks Chansu, forcing him to ask if someone is planning to attack them. Haiso-jin says there is the possibility of this because the Emperor Apple has gained much popularity. Due to this, they are forced to limit the purchase of the apple to one per person. And even with this, over 5,000 people have made reservations already. The numbers shock Chansu, and Hisoijin adds that the people who reserve say they don't even care when the apple arrives as long as they get it at some point. It is natural that, because of how popular the apple is, there will be raiders who will start targeting the apples and the block. To make things worse, Chansu's block is outside the authority zone, which means there is no protection against crimes. Haesujin wishes that they had some kind of backing because it would have completely changed the game. Chansu thinks deeply about this and realizes that the only backing he has is the goddess. Chansu figures out that if he loses, it is going to be the end for the goddess and the entire region. Haesujin tells him that the first step in curbing this is to claim the block and install a secure gate. Chansu agrees to this, and he says capturing the surrounding blocks to set up a disguise base will put them closer to Haesujin. Haesujin sees this as a really great idea because once they occupy the block and build a door, they won't have to deal with movement restrictions. Chansu then asks why the reservations increased out of nowhere because it definitely isn't normal. Haesujin tells him that the whole block is going crazy because of the effects of the Emperor Apple. Chansu is confused about the set effects, and Haesujin mentions that there have been claims that the apple is a cure for all. This shocks Chansu, who doesn't think the apple is even capable of everything they are claiming it does. Even Haesujin believes everything, but Chansu doesn't think much about it because it is just an apple. Meanwhile, an annoying journalist is following Rohan as he enters the hospital, and he has his camera ready. Rohan visits his friend, Yoon-soo, who is a grand alchemist. Rohan tells Yoon-soo that he brought a get-well gift for him, and the gift is nothing but a box of Emperor apples. Yoon-soo is surprised that Rohan brought the apples for him because he has heard the rumors too. Yoon-soo takes a bite from it and explodes in pleasure, saying the nutrition and flavor are maxed out. Yoon-soo expresses his shock and starts asking questions about the apple, but Rohan reminds him that he is not a cuisine expert. While Yoon-soo is slowly eating the apples, Rohan, who brought them as a gift, is munching on them like crazy. Yoon-soo stares at the apple and says there is no way to get this level of perfection out of an apple even if fertilizer is used. Yoon-soo screams out in horror when he realizes that his friend is eating the apple alongside him, and Rohan urges him to eat fast instead. Yoon-soo proudly tells Rohan that he doesn't care because he can easily call the Sunhwan department store and just order his own box of apples. Yoon-soo's hope is ultimately shattered when he learns that he might be an important person, but this doesn't mean much because the store is already overloaded with reservations. Yoon-soo tries to get them to sell to him by offering triple the price, but even this doesn't work. While the two are having fun, the reporter is busy taking pictures of them. In no time, an article is released stating that it was the Emperor Apple that helped Yoon-soo get out of the hospital. Ryu-woo bursts out in anger when he sees this because they are already battling countless rumors, and the article is basically adding fuel to the fire. Ryu-woo cannot believe that everyone thinks the apple is a miracle cure. Back in abundance, Chansu tells the goddess that he needs to step out for a bit to take over the surrounding blocks. Chansu tells Doji and Ari that they will be in charge of protecting the goddess. The goddess is shocked that Chansu is stepping out to claim territories, and she assumes that it is because he just got a new skill which is not even a combat skill. The goddess grabs his leg to prevent him from leaving because it is dangerous. Since Chansu can't understand the goddess, he assumes that the goddess is holding on to him because she now needs protein. Chansu smiles, asking if beef will be fine with them. Chansu excitedly heads into the storage room to get the frozen beef that he ordered earlier. Chansu is excited because it is basically the first real meat that he has gotten his hands on. Back on Earth, he only feasted on lab-grown meat. Chansu excitedly puts on the stove and he starts grilling the meat. He admits that the smell is definitely on a different level from the cultured meat he has always eaten. Doji is already excited to eat the meat, but Chansu tells him that the meat is for the goddess. Even Ari is disappointed because Doji just ate and he is already eager to jump on grilled meat. All while he is preparing the meat, the goddess looks absolutely mad, and Chansu believes that she is just hungry. Moments later, he finishes the meat and hands it over to the goddess. But to his surprise, the goddess trashes the delicious-looking meat. This shocks Chansu, who thinks the meat is spoiled, which is why the goddess threw it on the ground. Chansu takes out a part of it to try it to see if it is good, and he concludes that it is sweet. However, he believes that something is missing because it doesn't have the shock value of when he first had the apple. He assumes that this is the reason the goddess didn't eat either. Unknown to him, the goddess is crying so that he wouldn't go. But sadly, He can't hear her since he foolishly ignored the communication skill. On the other hand, Ari and Doji are celebrating because Chansu tells them that he is going to bring delicious meat for them when he comes back. That night, Chansu steps out just as planned. And while Ari and Doji are sleeping like logs of wood, the goddess stays awake, totally worried. Chansu arrives at the edge of the block, and the system asks him if he wants to move to the next block. Chansu then accepts the option, and he finds himself in the next block, but everywhere is pitch black. He uses the lantern to gain some visibility, and he realizes that he is in a jungle which is completely different from where he was before. Suddenly, a swarm of flying monsters dashes toward his location, and because they are too small, Chansu makes a run for it. They are so small that he can't even target their necks, and he figures out that running back to where he came from is his best option. Suddenly, the undead monsters cross over from the other block. Chansu is shocked to see them, but before he can make a violent move, he realizes that the monsters are on his side. Since he can't hear them, he doesn't know that the undead monsters are ready to protect him from other monsters because they believe that they are the only ones who have the right to kill Chansu. To make sure that they can uphold this, they are ready to protect him. The undead monsters then head straight for the bugs to start wiping them out, giving Chansu the chance to retreat back into his own block. Just then, the system informs him that he has earned bonus points from defeating evolved monsters. This shocks Chansu because he is basically earning points from the monsters that the immortal monsters defeated. Chansu smiles evilly because he has somewhat hit a gold mine of points. He realizes that this changes everything because he is gaining points and his customers are also increasing. The undead monsters that he was once running from are now bonuses to him. Back at the department store, Hei Soo-jin complains about the number of calls and orders that they have gotten. Ryuhu confesses that they have been allowing the rumors to fly for so long, but he doesn't think they can allow it to spiral any further. To curb the entire problem, he tells Hei Soo-jin that any mention of the Emperor Apple is strictly forbidden. He says there will be no more response to inquiries or interviews. He suggests that they greet all questions with silence and indifference. Hasujin thinks this might not be feasible because it is going to be total chaos. Ryuhu argues, saying they can't let out a word again even if they are threatened. Just as he mentions this, a sword appears on his neck, making his joke turn into reality. A voice appears from behind apologizing for startling them. Ryuhu turns around to see that the person who held a sword to his neck is the swordsman, Rohan. Ryuhu is crippled with fear, and he asks Rohan why he has come to the office. Rohan says he has talked to Ryuhu's boss already, but he didn't give him the answer that he wanted. However, he hopes that Ryuhu will be more cooperative. Rohan then drops the big question, asking Ryuhu who is responsible for growing the Emperor Apple. In addition to this, he wants to know where the said person is. Ryuhu immediately runs behind Hasujin, telling her to explain things to the scary Rohan. Hasujin is shocked that Ryuhu is hiding behind her when he is the senior and should be the one explaining things. Ryuhu frantically tells Hasujin that he never thought Rohan would bring a real sword to a civilized talk. Hasujin is ultimately disappointed, and she finally understands the saying that bosses are trash. Even though she is scared, Hasuja stands her ground, telling Rohan that the company doesn't joke with their clients' information. The moment Rohan hears this, he pulls out his sword and the two almost faint from fear. Surprisingly, Rohan drops the sword on the floor instead of ripping them apart with it. Rohan then tells the two that he doesn't need them because he is just going to find the farmer by instinct. After saying this, he turns around to leave, shocking Ryu and Hasujin. Hasujin has no idea what is happening, and he asks Ryu what the dude meant by instinct. Ryu reveals that sword masters usually have instincts that are far better than those of a regular person. He tells Hei Soo-jin that he once heard that Rohan solved many problems in the past using his instinct only. Hei Soo-jin is blown away by this, leaving her to wonder if what Rohan just said is possible. 2 days later, Chansu was waiting for the arrival of Rohan because Hasujin had already gave him the heads up. He wonders why Rohan has not shown up at his doorstep even after 2 days. Suddenly, he gets the notification that someone has entered the block. Without a doubt, he figures out that it has to be Rohan. He stands by the door waiting for him to enter any minute, but to his surprise, no one enters. He assumes that there is a glitch in the system, since all visitors are expected to enter through the gate. He checks through the system again, and he figures out that it is not a glitch. He decides to check out the surroundings just in case, and suddenly he is hit with a big surprise. Chansu watches as Rohan tears down a section of the barrier with nothing but his sword. Just the sight of Rohan sends chills down his spine, and Rohan walks up to him asking him if he is the apple cultivator. Chansu tries to hide his nervousness by welcoming Rohan the best way he can. Rohan goes straight to the point, telling Chansu that he is there to buy apples. Chansu is shocked by the sudden request, and he asks him how many apples he plans to buy. Rohan says he would like 100 apples, but if he can get 200, he doesn't mind. This shocks Chansu, and he screams out, telling Rohan that what he just requested is practically impossible. Chansu mentions that the limit to apples that he can sell is 50. Without arguing, Rohan says he is fine with 50 apples. Chansu then asks him what price he is willing to offer for the apples, and Rohan says 200,000 gold each. This shocks Chansu, who tells Rohan that they don't offer packaging like the stores, but Rohan doesn't mind one bit. Chansu also asks him if he is aware that he just mentioned the department store pricing, and Rohan assures him that he is aware. The amount of money Rohan is offering is so crazy that Chansu is already thinking of selling more for him. Chansu then takes Rohan to the apple tree, and Rohan is already salivating from the delicious apple he is about to eat. Chansu walks up to the tree, and he activates the blessing of abundance skill. Without delay, several apples pop out on the tree, and Chansu whips out his sickle, telling Rohan to give him a moment while he harvests the apples. However, Rohan tells him that there is no need for this. He brings out his sword, and in seconds, he cuts down all the apples, leaving Chansu in a state of horror. He doesn't want to believe his eyes, and he just assumes that what just happened is nothing but a bug. After concluding the deal, Rohan sends Chansu the agreed-upon money, and he assures him that he will be visiting again next time. Just as Rohan is about to leave, Chansu stops him. Chansu figures out that Rohan might be a big help to him concerning the new block. Chansu then asks Rohan if he is interested in other crops because he just grew them, and he is pretty sure that Rohan is going to love it. With a straight face, Rohan asks him what kind of crops he is talking about, and Chansu says potatoes. He has not even finished saying this when Rohan says he is not interested. Chansu pushes further, saying he has sweet potatoes and beans, but Rohan's answer remains the same. After denying all of his requests, Rohan says he is going to leave. Realizing that Rohan is integral to his plan, Chansu makes a desperate move to tell Rohan that he is going to give him more apples than what they agreed upon. Chansu can sense that Rohan is not a bad person, even if he appears to be strange and wild. Chansu then tells Rohan that he needs to take over another block if he is going to continue with the steady supply of apples. To do this, he tells Rohan that he is going to need his help, and in return he will pay him with apples. Chansu is wondering if his plan will work when Rohan walks up to him, telling him that he has agreed to the offer. Without wasting time, Rohan heads to the new block with Chansu running after him just to keep up. Chansu is surprised that Rohan is heading to the block immediately, and he starts wondering just how strong the dude can be. Chansu notices that the ground is wet with a strange liquid, which is very different from his own block. Chansu is staring at his dirty shoes when a monster appears behind him. Before the monster can make a meal of him, Rohan drags him off, telling him to stay behind him because hanging around is dangerous. Chansu cannot believe that Rohan is using the word dangerous when he is the one who is the dangerous one. Chansu is surprised that he almost got eaten by a monster disguised as a plant. Chansu then tells Rohan that he doesn't need to do too much since he will be the one managing the block in the end. Chansu wants to get rid of the monsters by himself. He activates decapitation, and he starts cutting down the monsters like they are nothing. After he is done, he activates the blessing of abundance. Meanwhile, Hazujin has entered the block, and she is moving around when she hears Chansu call her name. She looks down to check on Chansu with a bright smile on his face, but the smile disappears when he sees Rohan with Chansu working on a plant. Hazujin rushes down to ask Chansu what is happening, and Chansu says that since he is planning on taking on the surrounding blocks, he decided to plant his foot in the area. Hazujin screams at him that she doesn't care about what he is doing, but she is more interested in why Rohan is with him. Chansu then explains his current predicament to her. Apparently, when they first arrived on the land, Rohan tells Chansu that he would like to taste the apples grown on the new land. Chansu nervously tells Rohan that there is no land there because it is all filled with puddles. The moment Rohan hears this, he whips out his sword and swings it really hard to clear a large portion of the land. He clears the grass, turning it into a space where Chansu can plant seeds. Chansu is gripped with shock when he sees this, and he wastes no time planting the seed. He then casts the blessing of abundance on it, and this is what they were doing when Hazujin showed up. The seed that Chansu just planted has grown into a big apple tree with bright leaves. Hyeseojin is surprised, but she mentions that the apple smells really weird, and Chansu agrees with her. He says this is because of the environment. Apparently, the apples have double the aroma and flavor, and depending on the point of infusion, the taste changes. Chansu then confesses that he is still experimenting with it. Chansu plucks one of the apples and hands it over to Hyeseojin, asking her if she is willing to have a taste, but the girl refuses, saying she will pass. Hyeseojin then spots the plant monsters on the ground, and she calls them ostrich tails. Chansu is surprised because this is the first time he will hear of it. Basically, the monster takes a liking to an ostrich's habits, and it is said to be active only at night, which makes it extremely hard to catch. Hyeseojin checks out the monster, and she confesses that the conditions look really great. He takes some of its blood into a test tube and then asks Chansu if he was the one who hunted the ostrich tails. Chansu replies that it was all him, assuring Hyeseojin that Rohan wasn't involved. Chansu asks Hyeseojin if there is a problem with this, and Hyeseojin suddenly grabs him, asking him if he is willing to sell them. Apparently, the ostrich tails are said to sell for a high price. Scared of the zombie-like lady, Chansu agrees that he is going to sell them. Hyeseojin raises her hand in the sky, celebrating like she just won the lottery. Hyeseojin stares at Chansu like he is the most handsome man on the planet. Hyeseojin can't wrap her head around the fact that Chansu is skilled in both farming and combat. In addition to this, he even has a sword master by his side. Hyeseojin cannot hide the fact that meeting Chansu is a blessing to her. Hyeseojin is dreaming about several products that she might still get the opportunity to sell when Chansu calls her name. Hyeseojin is pissed that he ruined her imagination, and she asks him if he wants anything from her. Chansu reminds her that he ordered some things, and Hyeseojin looks into the bag to start bringing out all the things that Chansu ordered, like pest control plant seeds. There's also a building construction kit with her. In no time, Chansu builds a portable home for adventurers, and he also plants the pest-repelling seeds in the area. This leaves Hyeseojin shocked because she didn't know that Chansu has the ability to also grow plants in a short duration of time. Hyeseojin continues wondering just what kind of person Chansu is. Soon afterward, he purchases the new block, leaving the goddess and her retainer rejoicing like babies. Chansu is also happy because he has finally become a landowner. Apparently, a single block usually consists of 100 ownership units, and once all are acquired, the faction gains possession. Chansu is exceptionally happy because back on Earth, he could barely acquire a single room. In addition to this, purchasing the land comes with a bunch of new features, and the most important one is the block's trait assignment feature. Chansu gets a tip from the system, telling him that the traits assignable to a block depend on the apostle's god or the block's nature. Chansu is happy to hear this because the feature fits perfectly with the goddess's nature. The system asks him to choose a trait to assign to the block, and his options are growth and death. Since growth sounds better than death, he thinks of choosing growth. In addition, he believes that this will help with the goddess's growth too. Chansu applies the growth trait, but things don't look entirely different from what they look like. Chansu concludes that there is no notable difference because it is still on stage 1. He checks out the status window to see that the growth trait affects basically everything. Chansu is smiling until he realizes that there is an option for spawn monster growth there. Chansu almost faints from the fear creeping through his body when he sees this. This basically means the trait has its bad and good attributes. One of the bad attributes is that the undead monsters have partaken in it too. Even though they have grown, Chansu is relieved that they are still manageable. Chansu heads out as usual to take on monsters, and he easily takes them down as usual. He is glad because the undead monsters growing stronger also means more points for him. Suddenly, Rohan appears behind him, shocking him because he didn't even sense his presence. Chansu figures out that Rohan has come to see him because his apple is already finished. Rohan wonders what Chansu meant by already, and Chansu reminds him that it has not even been a week since he got the last batch. Chansu concludes that Rohan is just going to die from eating too many apples. Chansu then asks him how many apples he needs, and he replies that he wants 120. But if he can get more, he won't mind. Chansu then tells Rohan that he would have to adjust the flavor because of the change in environment. He says Rohan will taste one for free. Unknown to Chansu, the goddess and her retainers are gathered under the apple tree. He is shocked when he gets there to find them playing around. The group almost sinks into the ground when they spot Rohan since he looks pretty dangerous. Suddenly, Rohan swings his sword, and Chansu believes that he is aiming for the group. He dives to protect them, but in the end, Rohan was just aiming for the apples. Chansu believes that Rohan has not sensed the presence of the goddess since he called them familiars. Just then, Rohan says he can sense the growth trait on the block, and because of this, he would like to stay and train, but he assures Chansu that he is going to pay. Chansu becomes interested when he hears that Rohan is willing to pay, and he asks him how much he is offering. Rohan smiles while telling him the amount of money he is ready to throw out. This sends Chansu into a state of ecstasy, and he immediately shakes Rohan's hand, welcoming him as his esteemed customer. Rohan asks him if he thinks his request is possible, and Chansu says yes. However, he wants to know if the environment will not be torn in half, and Rohan assures him that it won't. Chansu also asks if things will suddenly explode out of nowhere, but Rohan assures him that he has nothing to worry about. Chansu then tells Rohan that he doesn't have the power to manufacture monsters since he doesn't even have lots of points to spare. Rohan lets him know that he doesn't need his help to sort out monsters because all he needs is a space in the corner. Chansu is surprised to hear that this is all Rohan needs. Chansu has no issues with this, but he tells Rohan that there is something else he wants aside from money. Chansu lets out his heart, saying he would like Rohan to be his guard. Since the world they are living in is prone to being in danger every time, Chansu thinks it would be better for Rohan to protect. After all, Rohan is one of the best swordsmen out there. Rohan replies that he will consider Chansu's offer if he can enhance the growth effect. Chansu is glad to hear this, and he assures Rohan that he is going to enhance the growth rate by 50,000 points every day. In addition, he's willing to provide 10 apples daily. Rohan is more concerned about the apples, and he asks if they can be purchased differently. Chansu then assures him that he doesn't have to worry about the apples. Meanwhile, Doji and the others are shaking in fear because it seems Rohan will now be staying with them. On the other hand, Chansu thinks the familiars will be happy because they have a swordsmaster protecting them. Chansu turns around to see a different reaction from the group. Rohan also sees this, but Chansu lies, saying the group is only shy because he is new. Chansu tries to get them to become familiar with Rohan, but the group runs away instead. Chansu cannot believe his eyes, but he moves past the embarrassing moment to tell Rohan his first request. Later on, the two are inspecting the other block when Rohan senses something behind the brushes. They walk over to check it out, only to find a cat lying there. Chansu is surprised because he wasn't expecting any other animals like hamster to be in the area. Because of how relaxed the cat looks, Chansu believes that it is not dangerous. And before Rohan can stop him, Chansu walks up to the cat to pet it. The cat wakes up to see an ugly face standing over it, and it jumps away like it just saw a ghost. The cat hisses at Chansu, which almost sends a chill feeling down his spine. The status window then informs Chansu that the cat is actually the Apostle of Negation, and it has declared war on his block. Chansu is shocked that the Apostle declared war on him just because he patted it a bit. With tears in his eyes, he asks Rohan if the cat is the Apostle of Negation because it has declared war on him, but Rohan believes that the dude is saying trash. Chansu suspects that the cat is mad because he was touched without permission. Chansu walks over to the cat to try to settle their differences while wondering why he has to fight a little cat. Just then, Rohan shocks him, telling him that he won't be fighting the cat. Rohan says the apostles he will be fighting will appear through the block's border very soon. Surprisingly, Rohan says they will be human. Chansu is shocked to hear this because it was easy for him to kill monsters, but humans are a different story. As if Rohan knows what he is thinking, he tells him that he is free to kill Negation. Rohan lets Chansu know that they have the option to resurrect at the temple. Chansu is shocked to hear this, and he asks Rohan if he is talking about a checkpoint, and Rohan says yes. Chansu considers this an unfair advantage because he and his group don't have the luxury of just getting a second chance if they mess up. Negation apostles, on the other hand, can act recklessly and not suffer the consequences that come with it. Chansu is hyped for the battle since he is at a disadvantage, and he asks Rohan if he is going to help him with the battle ahead. Rohan replies that he is willing to help if he can. Just as predicted, a group of Negation-loyal monsters and human apostles appear on the block. One of them holds a megaphone in his hand, and he makes a loud announcement telling Chansu to show himself. At the alchemy headquarters, Heisujin has taken the ostrich tail sap for examination. She is thinking about just how impressive Chansu is. She believes that Chansu is strong the way he is with the help of an artifact. Apparently, an artifact is a divine item that is created for those close to a god. Sometimes it is formed from remnants of a dead god, which in turn grants the user the opportunity to use the god's power. After thinking this through, Heisujin doesn't think Chansu is using an artifact because they are hard to use unless they match the deity's nature. Haiso-Ijin is thinking about the future possibilities of things when Eun-soo rushes into the room. Haiso-Ijin is shocked and even more shocked when Eun-soo starts walking toward her. Eun-soo has the ostrich tail sap with him, and he screams at Eun-soo asking him where he got the sap from. The question shocks Haiso-Jin, but without a doubt, she knows that something crazy is about to happen again. Back at Chansu's block, the apostles urge him to step out before they get tired of searching for him. Unknown to them, Chansu and Rohan are hiding in the nearby bushes. Chansu wonders why the dudes are acting recklessly, and he asks Rohan if he thinks this is because they can resurrect even if they die. Rohan confirms this, saying they are probably acting that way due to the chances of getting resurrected. Even though they have little time to engage the enemies, Chansu is relieved to have Rohan at his side. He is basically putting all of his faith in Rohan. Just then, Chansu steps out of his hiding place, holding his sickle. The apostle stares at Chansu like he is some kind of weakling, and he tells him to bring him apples. Another dude makes fun of Chansu, telling him that he is outnumbered and that he has no chance against them. However, the team starts getting nervous because they can't see Chansu do anything, which is pretty weird. After some minutes of silence, Chansu finally speaks out, telling the apostle that he is nothing but trash, and that he is not worth worrying over. Chansu is confident that he has the Swordsmaster backing him. And before the negation dudes will have to get the chance to do something crazy, Rohan would have dealt with them. The apostle is pissed by this, and he gives Chansu one more chance to surrender the Emperor apples. Chansu retorts, telling him to head to the department store if he really wants to eat apples. The apostle is overtaken with rage because of Chansu's big mouth, and he asks him if he can handle the consequences of his arrogance. Chansu further breaks the dude's ego by telling him to go ask his mother all the trash questions he is asking him. Chansu's words hit the dude at the spot where he wants, and he angrily tells his subordinates to kill Chansu. At the alchemy office, Eun-soo is pestering Hasul-jin about where she got the sap. Hasul-jin feels like telling him, but she mentions that customers' information is confidential. Eun-soo then tells her that he only asked because of the labor fee. Eun-soo comes clean, saying the ostrich tail sap that Hasul-jin brought has a higher purity percentage than the regular ones, which is always hard to maintain their purity level. Eun-soo brings out a contract sheet and hands it over to Haesejin, asking her if she can continue supplying them with the sap. Haesejin replies that she might have to ask the cultivator first, and Eun-soo suggests that they sign a provisional contract. Eun-soo is happy to hear this, and he lets Hae-soo-jin know that whoever is responsible for the SAP will always be welcomed to the alchemy department. Back to the standoff between Chansu and the negation apostles, the lead apostle notices that Chansu is pretty calm for someone who is outnumbered. He wonders why Chansu is so confident, and on the other hand, Chansu is thinking of how he is going to take down the skeletons approaching him. As the skeletons rush toward him, Chansu activates the mass decapitation skill, and he wipes out the entire skeleton team in one fell swoop. The apostle is surprised to see his subordinates flying in the air like they are feathers. Chansu piles on the misery by telling the apostle that his subordinates are quite weak. Chansu stands above the bones, asking the apostle if he is ready to surrender. However, the apostle is not about to lose to some derated farmer. The apostle brings out an orb, and using the orb, he summons a giant monster called Heracles. Heracles looks absolutely terrifying with a lion's head attached to his left shoulder. Instead of running off in fear, Chansu still finds a way to trash-talk the apostle, telling him that he is very bad at giving names. The apostle laughs at Chansu, telling him that he is about to regret his actions because Heracles is a weapon worth lots of money. The apostle then orders Heracles to go after Chansu. Heracles swings his giant punch, but he easily dodges it. Before Heracles can make another move, Chansu swings his sickle at him and sends him to the heavens in just one strike. Heracles crashes to the ground, shocking the apostle, who was already boasting of how strong Heracles is. The apostle cries in pain, saying Heracles is a monster he has been putting together for the past 10 years, and Chansu took it down like it's nothing. The apostle then turns to his subordinate, Soi, a fourth-generation apostle, to scold her for not joining the fight. Soi reminds the dude that he was the one who confidently went after Chansu, and she doesn't see any reason why he should complain after getting hooped by a farmer. Soya tells the dude that she's willing to get her hands dirty, but she will be getting extra fees. After all, her role was to guide the way and nothing else. Chansu is smiling and getting excited about the whole thing until Soya turns her gaze at him, and her eyes turn red. This is when a tip comes in, telling Chansu that Soy uses the skill called Negation of Life, which places a curse on the target. The system doesn't sugarcoat how dangerous the skill is, and before Chansu knows it, he has fallen under Soi's skill. The annoying dude starts laughing when he realizes Chansu has fallen for Soi's trap. He tells Chansu that he is about to witness what happens when someone crosses the negation. Soi screams at the dude, telling him not to forget the real reason why they came in the first place. The dude quickly gets a move on to try and find the apple tree, but he promises to get revenge for his broken creation later. As he dashes through the woods, he can smell the apples in the air, and he figures out that it is just a matter of time before he gets there. Suddenly, he notices a faint movement behind him, but when he turns around, he sees no one. He is left in confusion as he doesn't know where the person is. Suddenly, Rohan appears above him, and thanks to Rohan being a popular swordmaster, the dude recognizes him. However, this doesn't do him much help as Rohan cuts him down. Meanwhile, Chun Tzu suddenly opens his eyes to find himself back on Earth. The last thing he remembered was fighting the negation, but he had suddenly appeared somewhere else. He realizes that things appear to be totally different from what he knows. Just then, he hears his parents call his name from behind. He turns around to see that his parents are actually standing there, and his face lights up in joy as he rushes toward them. He jumps into their arms and hugs them tightly as tears roll down his face. Chansu cries out loudly, asking the two where they have been so far, and he begs them not to go anywhere again. Suddenly, his biggest fear starts to take place in front of him again. His parents push him aside, and they walk away as he screams, begging them not to leave. Chansu screams out in pain, but suddenly, Rohan pulls him out of the weird dream he is having. He tells him that he is suffering from Soi's trick, and what he saw wasn't real. Rohan had hit Soi on the arm while trying to rescue Chansu, and she couldn't believe that Rohan was in a place like this. Soi crashes to her knees, and Chansu angrily goes after her with his sickle, ready to punish her for making him cry. However, Rohan gets to Soi before him, and he cuts her down. Soi gets buried by the swampy water, and Rohan apologizes for butting in unnecessarily. However, Chansu is not pissed about this, but he is even thankful. Chansu then suggests that they go back to base while they come back to clean up the mess. Rohan asks him what his future plan is, and he reveals that his plan is to become the world's strongest force. However, the first thing that they are going to do is to take over every surrounding block. He asks Rohan if he can keep helping with this, and Rohan assures him that he has no reason to deny as long as he pays him with apples. Chansu then assures Rohan that he is going to pay him with as many apples as he wants. As they walk back to base, they run into the black cat again, and Chansu asks Rohan about the deal with the cat. Rohan casually tells him that the cat is one of the 7 calamities, a territorial predator. This shocks Chansu because he thought the cat was a usual friendly cat, and he realizes that he might have gotten himself killed without knowing. On the other hand, the negation soldier has found himself locked up in a cell for losing the battle against Chansu. The system tells him that a surcharge penalty has been applied due to the extreme difference between his faction and Shansu's low-level faction. He is required to pay 1 million gold coins as punishment, and this shocks the dude because he doesn't think the power difference is fair. He refuses to pay the money, claiming that there was a sword master supporting Shansu. The system then recognizes the dude's refusal to pay as an inability to repay the required debt and would be transferred to negation. The dude sees this and he freaks out, urging the system to come back because he is now ready to pay. Just then, he is dragged out of his cell by the undead monsters. And to make his situation worse, a scary negation apostle, Danha, shows up. She tells the dude to carefully explain what happened if he doesn't want to suffer a fate worse than death. The dude tells Danha that he found the cultivation site for the Emperor's apple. Dan believes that the dude is lying to save his own skin, but he swears it, saying Rohan was the one who disrupted his plans. Dan still doesn't want to believe this because she is well aware that the reparations wouldn't have been set too high if Rohan had fought alongside Chansu. The dude continues telling Dan that he is telling the truth. He mentions that Soi was defeated too, and this comes as a surprise to Dan. Dan then stands up from where she is sitting, and she walks toward the dude. The dude almost loses his little manly ego as the scary lady walks up to him. Danha then tells the dude that they can't hold Soi accountable, which means he will be the one to suffer the consequences of their failure. Danha smiles evilly while telling the dude that she has a proposition. She grabs the dude's head and puts him under a contract that will make him a prisoner until he fulfills her wishes. She tells the dude to head to the cultivation site and start working on it. The dude argues that this is impossible, but Danha threatens to turn him into an undead if he doesn't cooperate. She lets him know that the only way he is getting out of this mess is to find a way to infiltrate the apple cultivation site. On the other hand, Chansu is still freaking out when he hears that the black cat is one of the 7 calamities. Chansu asks Rohan if they are going to be fine, and he lets him know that they would be dead already if the cat wanted them gone. Chansu then asks what would happen if the cat actually wanted to do something bad, and Rohan lets him know that the cat would simply devour their territorial rights. Chansu panics when he hears this because he doesn't even think territorial rights are something that can be eaten. Chansu rushes to check the system, and he realizes that it can actually be eaten, but he is glad that the cat has not decided to eat it yet. Chansu then demands to know why the cat is there, and Rohan reveals that the cat is there for catnip. This leaves Chansu surprised again because the monster is not a real cat, which begs the question of why it is going after catnip. Rohan then points out the fact that the cat has shrunk, and Chansu uses his blessing of abundance to help the cat. The cat rolls around on its back, urging Chansu to touch it. And when he does, he realizes that it is different from touching Hamstel because the cat is big and fluffy. Nonetheless, Rohan doesn't want to get carried away because he knows the cat is pretty dangerous and might easily end him if it wants to. Just then, it dawns on Chansu that the cat has been with them for a while, and it would be nice if it had a name. After so much deliberation on what to name the cat, Chansu finally settles for Night Sky. The cat stares at Chansu, demanding to know why he picked Night Sky, and Chansu mentions the cat's attributes that made him choose the name. Suddenly, Chansu gets the notification that he has won the war, and he has been given a compensation of 1 billion. Chansu is still celebrating this when he gets another notification, telling him that Negation has requested negotiations. Apparently, until they are done with negotiations, the loser will be retained as a prisoner. Chansu freaks out in pain, demanding that his 1 billion is returned to him, but there is nothing he can do about the situation. Later that night, Chansu makes a vow to the goddess while she is sleeping, assuring her that he is going to make abundance the greatest power in the world because thanks to her, his life has gotten much better. He promises the goddess that he is going to help her reclaim her lost glory, and the goddess places her head on his arm with tears rolling out of her eyes when she hears this. Later on, Chansu scolds Rohan that the only thing he has been eating is apples. He lets him know that he is supposed to be eating other foods so as to maintain a balanced diet, but Rohan doesn't really care. Even during all the lectures and whatnot, Rohan assumes that Chansu is just trying to steal his apple. Chansu is forced to leave the matter because he realizes that Rohan is a sword master and he can take care of himself. After he is done with Rohan, he walks over to the goddess and her servants. He chose to speak casually to the goddess because he is still trying to hide her identity from Rohan. The goddess subordinates freak out when they hear this, and they start yelling at Chansu even though he can't hear them. They believe that he is acting all cool thanks to the fact that he has been earning points for them. While the others are freaking out, the pig is the first to figure out that Chansu is probably doing that to protect the goddess since Rohan doesn't know the goddess's real identity. Just like kids, a brief battle ensues between the pig and the chick, all because of talking to the goddess casually. Shortly afterward, Chansu prepares to leave the temple again, and he assures the goddess that he is not going to stay long. Rohan then tells him that the flow of time in each world is different. In fact, there are differences between Earth and where it is. Because of this, Rohan advises Chansu not to rush too much. Just when he is about to leave, Chansu tells Hamstel that he can come with him because he has gotten a pouch specifically designed to hold him. Hamstel excitedly jumps into the pouch as he joins Chansu on a journey to expand the territory. Thankfully, Chansu has placed a door on the exits for easy access, and with this, he has no need for a travel pass. He steps through the door to find Hazujin already waiting for him. Hazujin freaks out when she realizes that Rohan is still with Chansu, and he lets her know that they have agreed to stay together for the time being. Hisujin holds her head in frustration, saying she was already suspecting, but she didn't know Chansu would go through with it. She then asks him where the cat came from. Chansu lets her know that it was the cat who found its way to him, and he also tells her the cat's name. Hisujin is impressed to hear this, as she talks about how smart the cat is. Deep down, Chansu is pleased that Night Sky is smart enough to know that eating the territorial rights means no more apples, hence no catnip. Hisujin then tells Chansu that smart monsters sell for a whole lot of money on the market, but Chansu lets her know that this might be a problem. Hisujin suggests that he install a dungeon to make things easy for him because monsters naturally gather in dungeons. Chansu thinks about it for a bit and realizes that Hisujin is right and the dungeons might come in handy later. However, Chansu lets Hisujin know that there might be a bit of difficulty because Night Sky came from another block, which he doesn't even know. Hisoijin gets more curious, asking if Night Sky is a human who turned into a cat. But Chansu lets her know that Rohan claims that Night Sky is a territory devourer. Hisoijin is forced to say this out loud, and Chansu confirms it. Hamstal almost dies out of fear when it hears this. Chansu then adds that Night Sky is actually one of the 7 calamities. Hamstal's spirit immediately leaves his body when it hears this, and Hisoijin tries to play it cool. She smiles and then suddenly grabs Chansu before leaping away from the area. With tears in her eyes, she asks Chansu why he has one of the 7 calamities in his territory. Apparently, there are reports that the calamities can devour not just territorial rights, but entire blocks. She demands to know why Night Sky would come, and Chansu says there is a possibility that it came because of catnip. Hisoijin doesn't want to believe that Night Sky settled for only catnip when it is not even a real cat. Chansu confesses that he doesn't know either, but he gave some really dumb explanation about why Night Sky might prefer to have the catnip rather than destroy the territory. Hasujin agrees with him, but lets him know that they can't say for sure since it is all guesswork. Chansu also knows this, but he believes that he has no choice since he is the chosen one. Hasujin then asks him if everything is going to be fine because she would hate to come around one day only to find everything in chaos. Chansu believes that Night Sky might actually protect the block since cats are territorial creatures. Suddenly, Chansu sees Night Sky trying to eat Hamstal, and he rushes over to stop it. Chansu grabs Hamstal away, telling Night Sky that it is not food. Night Sky just gives Chansu the side eye, and Chansu asks Rohan why he didn't do anything when he was there. Rohan claims that he was going to stop it if something had happened, but Chansu points out that Hamstal almost got eaten. Hisoijin then suggests that they handle everything carefully before the two get used to each other. Hisoijin then reveals that there is something Chansu needs to know. Apparently, there is a scammer who is claiming ownership of the Emperor's apple. Chansu doesn't really take this seriously, and Hisoijin lets him know that the dude is claiming that he is the Apostle of Abundance, which means he has a right to the apple. Chansu is shocked when he hears this, and Hisoijin adds that the dude brought an apple to prove he's an apostle, but it turned out to be a knockoff. In fact, he brought a fake contract, but everything has been cleared out. Just then, Hisoijin notices that Chansu is acting weird, and she asks him what the problem is. Chansu is pissed to find out that there is another apostle aside from him, and he hasn't shown up from the start. To make it worse, he is now claiming ownership, calling himself the Apostle of Abundance. With a stern voice, Chansu tells Hisoijin that they need to find the dude. Hisoijin is surprised as to why he wants to find him, and Chansu lets Hisoijin know that he is actually the Apostle of Abundance. Hasul-jin freaks out when she hears this since she wasn't expecting it. Chansu tells Hasul-jin to put a bounty on the dude, and in fact, he is ready to pay extra for the artifact. Apparently, if the dude is captured alive, Chansu is willing to pay 100 apples as a reward. Even Rohan gets tickled when he hears the reward that is being offered. Meanwhile, somewhere in Negation's back alley, there is a dude in a hoodie thinking about how he wants to convince Rohan and Chansu. He walks into a shop, and the light comes down on his face to show that it is the Negation soldier, Kim Yoon-hook. Apparently, he is a regular customer at the shop, but the shop owner already knows that he is a broke-ass. Yoon-hook gives the shop owner a list of things that he wants, and in exchange for them, he is forced to give out the last prize stone that he has. Yoon-hook then tells the man to give him a good price because this might be the last time they are going to see each other. Realizing that Yoon-hook is totally broke, the shop owner tells him about the bounty that has been placed on the scammer. The moment Yoon-hook hears this, he dashes out of the shop, thanking the shop owner for giving him an opportunity. Apparently, Yoon-hook has finally found the proposal gift he has been looking for to try to convince Chansu. Not long after this, Yoon-hook shows up at Chansu's place. He is accompanied by 2 of his friends who also want to serve under Chansu. To properly convince Chansu, he lets him know that he has caught the scammer. Chansu is shocked when he realizes that Yoon-hook had already caught the scammer given the movement restrictions and all. He is not entirely surprised because the reward was too good to be ignored. Staring at the scammer, Park Hyunmo, Chansu could actually sense the aura of abundance from his body. Since he doesn't look all that much, Chansu wonders how Park was able to deceive people to scam them. Park starts grumbling, telling Chansu to untie him because he is currently practicing insubordination. Chansu angrily whips out his sickle, telling the dude that he sure knows how to piss people off. Park then makes fun of Chansu, telling him that he is only acting tough because he can't possibly kill him. Chansu walks up to him, places the sickle on his throat, and reminds him that they are both apostles of abundance, which means he knows exactly where to cut to finish him off. However, before anything else, he demands to know where the artifact is. Park scolds Chansu, saying he is trying to rob his senior. Chansu simply makes fun of him, telling him that he has been yapping all day long, which is not a good sign of a senior. Yoonhook ignores the dude and excitedly whips out the artifact, which is a crown made from flowers. Chansu checks out the artifact, and when he realizes that there is no aura coming from it, he confirms that Park is truly his senior. This only makes Chansu angrier because it is exactly because of him that the goddess turned out the way she is. Chansu then walks up to Park, calling him a traitor and letting him know that he has no right to even talk about the Emperor Apple. Park argues that he deserves the rights that come with the Emperor's apples because he is an apostle. Chansu then reminds the dude that he didn't contribute anything, which brings him to the question of what right he has to ask for anything. Park makes the whole thing worse by asking Chansu what he has done too. Park tells Chansu that he is only walking on the foundation he has already laid. He claims that the apples, monsters, and even the temple have all been him from the beginning. Chansu is pissed when he hears this, but he tries to keep a calm profile because thinking about it, it doesn't appear that Park was working alone. Chansu then asks Park who the hell is backing him. Chansu mentions that it is his job to protect and care for his god, but he abandoned her. To do this, Chansu believes that the dude has something he relied on. Park replies that there is nothing like that because he was only trying to survive and he ended up driven into a trash place. Chansu then raises his sword to decapitate him since he doesn't have anything good to say. Realizing that Chansu might actually go through with it, Park screams out in pain, talking about how he didn't have a choice. He claims that he was just a normal human who had never swung a sickle before in his life. Cheon-soo is tired of hearing his BS and he tells him to just go ahead and tell him who is backing him. Park replies that he doesn't know because they only promised to give him money for life and he followed. However, he got tricked and the money never came. Chansu is surprised to hear this because the dude is basically useless at this point. Park starts begging, telling Chansu to forgive him because he would not do such a thing again. However, Chansu lets him know that it is already too late and he hits him on the head to knock him out. Chansu wants to kill him, but he still can't imagine himself hurting a real person even though it is a game world. Suddenly, he gets an invite from the god of negation, asking him to convert because if he becomes his apostle, he can easily kill Park. Chansu cannot believe that negation is stalking him. Chansu then asks what would happen if he killed Park, who was in the same faction as him, and Yoonhook tells him that it is a taboo and might get excommunicated. Negation then uses this opportunity to start disturbing Chansu with more offers, but Chansu rejects everything. Negation is so desperate that it even suggests that Chansu take a month's break. Chansu is forced to scream out that he is not interested. Chansu then figures out that negation is connected to him somehow, which is why he is able to send messages to him the way he wants. Since Yoonhook is begging to be hired, Chansu gives him his first task, which is watching over Park. Not long after this, Chansu returns to the temple with the artifact of abundance. Chansu lets the goddess know that he is there to return what originally belongs to her, and the goddess doesn't want to take it. However, Chansu lets her know that she can because he is doing fine even without the artifact. The goddess finally takes it, and this emits a bright light that leads to a divine transformation. Chansu watches in shock as the goddess transforms from the platform into a young girl. Her subordinates jump up in joy because the goddess has finally gained her powers. Chansu is shocked when he sees this because he didn't believe that he was standing right in front of the goddess. Chansu smiles because he never thought he would see this day. Just then, the goddess appoints Chansu as the chief apostle, which gives him the power to manage other apostles. Chansu is surprised because he didn't know that a function like this actually existed. Chansu immediately makes the decision on Park since he can't kill him. Chansu wastes no time demoting Park to a servant, ultimately stripping him of his apostle title. The goddess is left in shock, and so are her subordinates. This is also when it dawns on Chansu that the title of chief apostle is gone. He notices the goddess's reaction, and he realizes that the goddess must have really cared, but he somehow messed things up. Just then, the goddess starts transforming back into her plant form. Chansu kneels in front of the goddess, apologizing to her, but he lets her know that it is not advisable to keep a traitor in their midst. Chansu then assures the goddess that he is going to grow their influence further, so she has nothing to worry about. The goddess is happy to hear this, and she grants another skill option for Chansu. He gets the option to pick between the communication skill and the health abundance skill. Chansu is surprised to see this because the goddess is basically overworking herself at this point. Nonetheless, he decides to check it out. Meanwhile, the chick is pretty mad that Chansu is excommunicating people when they barely have any apostles. Thankfully, the pig is there to hold it down. The chick stares at Chansu, hoping that he will pick the communication skill, so that they can avoid situations like the one that just happened. To their dismay, Chansu picks the healthy abundance option even though he has no idea what the skill does. He just assumes that it is a passive skill that makes one healthier as they eat food blessed with abundance. The goddess and her subordinates break down in tears because they believe it is finally the end since Chansu doesn't look like someone who is ready to select the communication skill. They are still troubled about this when the goddess finally transforms back into her plant form. Seeing this, Chansu has no choice but to hope that the healthy abundance helps in a lot of ways. Later on, those who have been scammed by Park all receive a free Emperor apple from Chansu through the circulation company. They are all informed to be wary of next time because the Emperor apple only comes via the circulation company. One mother cuts out a slice and hands it to her son. Upon tasting the apple, the son freaks out because of how delicious it is, and he ends up using the F word. His mother believes that he is overreacting, but when she has a taste too, she has no choice but to use the F word. The woman decides that she has no choice but to brag about how good the apple is. Days later, the online community is going crazy about how good the apple is. The online posts then further increase the glaze on the apple. In no time, the rumors start to mutate into the fact that the Emperor apple is good for virility. Meanwhile, the situation is being monitored by a dude in glasses. Later on, Chansu thinks about the next plan of action. He is glad that he managed to secure all the blocks around the temple, and since Rohan is with him, he believes that everything should be fine. Not long after this, Hye Soo-jin shows up to tell Chansu that they have a problem. She lets him know that there is a new rumor about the Emperor's apples. Chansu doesn't think it's that serious since the apples have turned into a cure-all apple. However, he freaks out when he hears that the rumor is about virility. He realizes that this is not a simple statement since the earth is already losing its vitality. Basically, the issue of virility was a serious one that some people even died from eating a snake's gallbladder thanks to how desperate they were. Hye-soo-jin then asks him if he is pretty sure that there are no actual effects coming from the apples. Chansu then mentions that there are a few who claim that they are seeing results, and this includes Rohan. Chansu believes that this is basically because they feel better. And in addition, he didn't even add any special virility boost effect to the apples. Chansu then suggests that they grow a fruit that is actually good for virility if they are trying to avoid backlash. Hye-soo-jin agrees with him, saying this is a good idea. They obviously do not need marketing for it again because it has publicized itself already. However, the question of which crop is going to work remains. The question in Rohan suggests that they use wolfberries. Chansu is surprised to hear this because he believed that Rohan only cared about apples. Since Rohan suggested wolfberries, Chansu decides to go with that, and he mentions that they are going to need workers. Fortunately for Yoonhook, his chance finally came, and he assures Chansu that he is going to work really well. Chansu is surprised to see how eager the dude is to work, and Chansu lets him know that he is not obligated to decide so quickly. In addition, he lets him know that he is not forcing him to participate either. One of Yoonhook's friends then asks Chansu what it is that they are planning to cultivate. Chansu reveals that it is wolfberries, and the dude immediately goes on his knees, begging Chansu to take him in. Chansu cannot believe how desperate they are to work because everybody connected to Yoonhook is ready to join in. At this point, Chansu assumes that the group has issues. Not long after this, Chansu invites Hye-soo-jin, and he gives her a basket of the wolfberries that have been cultivated to tackle the virility issue. In fact, Chansu has created a pill that would induce potency in just 30 minutes. Hye-soo-jin is blown away because Chansu was able to create something like this in a short space of time. Chansu is a bit embarrassed because this is the first time he will be using the blessing of abundance to actually boost a specific body function. However, he was able to discover the method thanks to a dude who is an expert in pleasure relations. Chansu then tells Hye-soo-jin that they might see a wider variety of medicines being released for a while, and he urges Hye-soo-jin to verify the safety first. Hye-soo-jin looks absolutely invested as she assures Chansu that she is going to make sure she turns every one of the wolfberries into gold. Chansu smiles, telling Hye-soo-jin that he would be counting on her. Deep down, Chansu is eager to see what kind of news the wolfberries will bring this time around. Hye-soo-jin returned to the office. She started thinking of a way to get people to buy the berries, and her option was to make them think with their lower body rather than their heads. She decides to brew it and package it in bottles, believing that it would make it sell better. After brewing it, she drinks it in front of her boss, and he asks her how it tastes. She replies that it's savory and even has a faintly sweet taste. She mentions that it is easy to drink just like water. She then urges her boss to have a drink, but he is scared to do so. However, she manages to convince the dude to gulp up the rest of the bottle. After he is done drinking, he lets Haisejin know that he might not be able to testify about the effects, but he can surely say the flavor is decent. After this, Haisejin tells her boss that she has to leave. Apparently, she is heading to a peculiar place, which isn't the alchemy office, by the way, since they are the ones who generally certify medicinal items. Haisejin then makes her way to the only block that has been configured to remain dim even during the daylight. This is a scenery that would cause some to feel lonely, ultimately desiring partners. Staring at the environment, Haisejin realizes that all the people he is staring at are potential customers. This is basically because the happier they become, the more she sells. Haisejin then makes her way to the Temple of Purity, which is in the middle of it all. She meets the receptionist, and she states her business to her. She lets her know that she is there to obtain certification for a stamina booster, and the lady asks her to follow him to the reception room. As she walks through the hall, Haisejin is blown away by how everything is laid out. Apparently, the Temple of Purity has taken over the adult market, which is weird because lust or carnal should be the ones controlling everything. When the apostle checked out the wolfberry tea, he handed Haisejin the certification, saying it is actually effective for functional improvement. He urges Haisejin to maintain the tea's concentration. He then talks about the pill and the fact that it was slightly lacking. Haisejin asks him what the issue is, and he lets her know that wolfberries are excellent ingredients, but they need to be combined with other components. He suggests that they cultivate the other ingredients alongside the wolfberries to increase the efficacy. He tells Haisejin that she is free to supply the ingredients if she's having difficulty getting the right mix. However, this would mean that the stamina booster would be sold under the Purity brand. However, he lets her know that whatever she chooses is fine by him. Haisejin is surprised to hear how confident the apostle is, and she reminds him that she might end up having a formidable competitor. The apostle then tells her that they don't really care about this because they are always in search of new and powerful stimulation. He mentions that they started producing it themselves because there weren't enough people providing sufficient stimulation. However, the existence of a capable producer is always welcome. When Haisejin recounts this mission summary to Chansu, he freaks out because he realizes that Purity guys might be an insane bunch. Apparently, it is a taboo for those in the Purity clan to make love, which is why they grow by enduring their passions. In fact, they started seeking stronger simulations for their training. Purity was able to take over the night market, and even though they are a small faction, they ended up securing a solid economic and military power. Haisejin tells Chansu that it would be beneficial for them to get certified by Purity directly, but at the same time, entrusting the manufacturing to them is also a fine choice. Haisejin then shows Haisejin the ingredients that were requested by Purity. Haisejin takes a look at the ingredients and realizes that these are ingredients that he is seeing for the first time. Chansu then asks Haisejin if she is selling the wolfberry tea, and she confirms this, saying she even wants to supply all hotels located in Purity too. Since they have achieved their goal, Chansu suggests that they develop the stamina booster slowly. Chansu believes that everything has come to a calm state until he gets a visit from the Legend of Purity. This is a man who has not engaged in pleasure since the age of 40. This man is Park Hong-yul, the Archmage of Purity. Apparently, he has come to see Chansu because he claims that he is on the verge of losing his manhood function, and if he loses it, he is going to be expelled from Purity. Chansu freaks out when he finds out that the chances of recovery are pretty low. In the start, people saw Purity as just a facade befitting the image of Purity. They were seen as ones who lived an unstained life with an aura that transcended the secular world. However, the whole block was built on territorial warfare. And given the fact that Purity has a weak faction, its future was obvious. To protect its power, Purity realized that it needed power. This was when Park realized that chastity is not the same as purity. He figures out that as long as self-control is maintained, anything is fine. With this realization, Park alone was able to produce half of the total points generated by Purity in just 1 year. Chansu is surprised to hear this, and he asks Park if the god of Purity allowed him to do that. Park narrates that there were initial talks about excommunicating him, but once the god saw the points he was generating, he personally encouraged Park's method. This induced a great wind of innovation and purity. Deep down, Chansu believes that this is all an addiction because both sides are corrupted at this point. Apparently, the greater the temptation one endures, the faster their spirit grows. In no time, the skill grew so much that even before impulses arose, the temptation had disappeared. Since the duty of purity is to suppress pleasure impulses and maintain integrity, Park knows he is going to lose his qualifications if the root itself disappears. Because of this, Park holds Chansu's hand, begging him to help him out because there seems to be hope in the wolf berries. Chansu is left in confusion because he doesn't think he has what it takes to defeat a skill that has been honed for over 30 years. Park then tells him that it is not an immediate problem, so he begs him to focus on product development. Park brings out an envelope and he hands it to Chansu. He lets him know that he is ready to support his research with everything. Chansu opens the envelope and almost passes out in shock because of the high amount of money that Park is willing to give him as a reward if he succeeds. Because of how high the reward is, Chansu has no choice but to accept the task. Meanwhile, one of the first generations of the Purity Apostles calls a meeting with his colleagues. Apparently, they want to start building plans on how to maintain purity itself. It has come to their attention that abundance has created a stamina booster. They have also verified its effectiveness. And judging from consumer reactions, they believe that stronger versions wouldn't be impossible. Apparently, the food division of alchemy is furious because of the berry tea. This is because some are already choosing the tea over what alchemy has been selling. The apostles are surprised that the grand alchemist, Un-Su, brushed this matter aside. One of them then mentions that Un-Su's friend, Rohan, has taken the Apostle of Abundance under his wings. They start thinking of the next thing, and one suggests that they approach Chansu with a good offer. Another mentions that they actually know his block's location, but going directly will definitely not work. He points out that Park, who is now with Chansu, would just detect them and chase them out. One of them immediately comes up with a suggestion. He tells his colleagues that they need to ally themselves with alchemy and draw out Chansu. Once Chansu is left alone, they kick their plan into motion. Back at Chansu's territory, he tells Yoonhook to follow him because he has something to tell him. Just then, Yoonhook spots his defeated creation, Hercules, in the distance. He rushes over to hug the headless creature because he didn't think he would ever see it again. Apparently, Chansu restored it because he figured out that Yoonhook would resent him if he allowed Hercules to rot. Since Chansu and Yoonhook will be working together, he figures out that it would be better if he raises his affection level. Chansu then asks Yoonhook if he doesn't mind that the Hercules is missing its head, and Yoonhook says no because the job he needs it for is simple labor. In fact, with Hercules by his side, he is confident that his labor output will increase by 17 times. Chansu then points out the skeleton soldiers too, but Yoonhook is not convinced that the skeleton soldiers would be of much help. However, Chansu urges Yoonhook to teach them because they might get better at it. Yoonhook reluctantly agrees to this, but says they have to or else they are just going to get in the way. Cheon-Su is actually impressed that Yoonhook can handle the skeleton soldiers, and he considers him an affectionate person. Suddenly, Cheon-Su hears a scream in the distance, and when he looks around, he sees Park chasing around the hard worker. Apparently, Park believes that the dude is the perfect person to inherit his legacy, but the dude says he is not interested because he would like to get married and live happily ever after. The dude hides behind Chansu for safety, and Chansu urges Park not to push the dude too hard. Park then asks Chansu if he is interested in inheriting his legacy, but Chansu outrightly refuses. Chansu then whips out the new pills that he just finished, and he tells Park to try them out. Park tastes the two and mentions that they both fall under 32 and 33 points, respectively. This is pretty low because their target point is at least 90. However, Park tells Chansu to hold his head high because an ordinary man would have turned into a beast just by taking the pills. Chansu then asks why he hasn't been able to reach 40 points. Park lets him know that the caster's mental state affects blessings. He mentions that sometimes empathy comes before problem solving. Park then decides to show him what he means. He reaches his lower body, and Chansu freaks out believing that he wants to bring out his schlong. However, Park whips out an adult book, telling Chansu that he is the only one he can show. At this point, Chansu believes that the dude is crazy. Chansu is still trying to pull himself together when Hae-Soo-jin shows up bringing news as usual. With excitement on her face, she tells Chansu that Alchemy has sent a dungeon subjugation request to Chansu. Chansu hears this and immediately pictures a dragon in his head, causing him to freak out because he doesn't know why they would request this from a farmer. Chansu wonders why they sent this request to him since all he has is a rusty sickle, and the only skill he has is decapitation, which barely counts as one in the first place. Chansu is forced to ask Hei Sujin if he doesn't look like a farmer, because everything just doesn't seem right to him. Hei Sujin then tells Chansu that they might have called it a subjugation, but in truth, it is a gathering request to obtain monster byproducts. It then dawns on Chansu that they might want a situation where what they want doesn't spoil. Basically, whatever Chansu cuts doesn't spoil, and Chansu asks Hazujin if the target is a plant-type monster, but Hazujin reveals that it is a high-grade water spirit. Apparently, high-grade spirits need to be taken down in one blow if one wants a chance to cut off their lifeline. Basically, this is why the request is for someone with powerful firepower like a swordmaster. Chansu cannot believe that the request was sent to him since it would have been suitable for Rohan. Since Chansu is reluctant to leave the territory, he thinks of refusing the request. Chansu then tells Hazujin that he is not interested, shocking her. She asks him if he is sure that he wants to reject the offer because the reward that comes with it is quite enormous. Hazujin lets him know that he will be provided with a weapon, and after this, he gets the chance to tame a water spirit. The moment Chansu hears this, he automatically becomes interested since a water spirit is a dream item for every farmer. Hazujin then tells Chansu that it would be better if he accepts because they are currently on alchemy's bad side. Chansu then remembers that Hazujin mentioned the wolfberry tea being overshadowing alchemy's products. Hazujin confirms this, saying the request is just an excuse to clear up a misunderstanding. Hazujin then asks Chansu if there is any other reason why he is hesitating, and he reveals that he doesn't want to leave his block defenseless. Hazujin understands his plight, and she suggests that Chansu finish up the temple first. Hazujin mentions that they also received construction materials through alchemy. In addition, it appears that temples have a protective function. Chansu is surprised to hear this, and Hazujin lets him know that the temple is not treated as a strategic resource for nothing. Some days later, Chansu completes the temple, and the goddess reflects on the events that have happened in the past days. She believes that Chansu is finally making the decision to focus on internal affairs. She also wishes that Chansu would just obtain the communication skills to make everything perfect. Suddenly, the skill, the last bastion, activates in the temple, shocking the goddess and her subordinates because this is a wartime defense skill. It turns out that Chansu is testing out the temple's defenses by asking Rohan to strike it. Fortunately, the defense happens to be solid because it even blocked Rohan's strikes. Once this is settled, Chansu tells Hazujin that he can finally leave. However, he forgets to tell the goddess, but he believes that nothing would happen since he is not staying long. Moments later, they arrive at the alchemy headquarters, and the journey was quite fast thanks to the fact that they installed gates on their paths. Once Hazujin drops Chansu and Rohan off at the headquarters, she leaves. Chansu meets the receptionist who tells him that they have been waiting for him. She hands Chansu a box containing the weapon they promised him, and she lets him know that he is free to exchange it for another if he doesn't like it. Chansu ends up handing over the box to Rohan for safekeeping in exchange for 2 apples. The lady then tells Chansu that he would have to cast a blessing on the potion used to tame the water spirit. She lets him know that she also can use their own blessing because his own blessing of abundance might fail. She asks Chansu what option he is going to choose, and since there is no record of what would happen if he uses his blessing, Chansu decides to use his own blessing. The lady then tells Chansu to follow her to the dungeon, so he can hear the rest of the explanation as they go. Moments later, they arrive at the dungeon, and the lady lets Chansu know that everything has been set up already. Apparently, they are in a hunting ground for ordinary water spirits, and if he lights incense, they are going to come running to him, giving him the chance to hunt as many as he likes. However, he is required to defeat the boss, but the byproducts will belong to alchemy. Since the boss is in a separate location, the lady tells Chansu to let her know when he is ready. For the first thing, she tells him to cast his blessing on the taming potion. Chansu then casts his blessing on the potion, leaving a bright light as he pours in his blessing. Since he can cast as many as he wants, Chansu continues casting his blessing into the potion, and before he knows it, he has achieved 500,000 points, ultimately turning the blue potion into green. The lady confesses that this is the first time she has seen such a reaction. Curious, she rushes over to bring a water spirit. She throws the water spirit at Chansu, telling him to throw the potion at the water spirit. The potion hits the spirit midway, and the water spirit starts to absorb it. This leaves them wondering if it actually happened. Suddenly, the water spirit starts to puke, leaving Chansu to believe that his compatibility rate is bad. Chansu is thinking of what to do when a horde of water spirits rushes into the room, shocking the alchemy lady because they have not even released the bait yet. The lady immediately whips out her book to take notes because this is the first time something like this has happened. Suddenly, the first water spirit starts consuming its colleagues, further contributing to the list of things that the lady has not seen before. She asks Chansu if he took some weird medicine, but Chansu promises that he didn't. The lady then mentions that the spirit might be suffering from an overdose because it appears that the abundance blessing is acting as a lure. In no time, the first spirit absorbs the others, and suddenly the boss appears in the room, which is weird because lures are not supposed to work on bosses. Chansu immediately gets on the defensive because he has come face to face with the target of the quest, a high-grade spirit. He is still trying to figure out what to do when the other spirit starts absorbing the boss spirit, causing it to get even bigger. The lady crashes to her knees because she can't believe that the boss just got eaten right in her presence. Even Chansu holds his head in frustration, wondering why they asked a farmer to clear a dungeon. To make it worse, the spirit's puking got even worse. Chansu tries to comfort the spirit, telling it that it is not its fault because he is the one who should have thought twice before throwing the medicine at it. Chansu places his hand on the spirit, urging it to let it all out because it would definitely feel better. Chansu also decides to stabilize the energy that is rampaging inside the spirit. After letting off a lot of liquid, the spirit ends up getting smaller. Chansu is about to say it is cute when it spits on his face. Just then, the water spirit transforms into an orb and sits gently on Chansu's hand. The lady alchemist then congratulates Chansu, telling him that he has successfully tamed a water spirit. However, she lets him know that she breached the contract by not securing the high-grade water spirit. Just then, she lets him know the two things he has to say if anyone tries to pin this logic on him. The first thing he's going to say is that the medicine provided by alchemy caused the whole mess, and secondly, he will be handing over the rights to the water that came out of the spirit. Chansu is surprised that they are interested in the vomit, but he really doesn't mind. The lady lets Chansu know that the spirit will wake up once it regains its spirit. However, she warns him that it might look different than usual, but she urges him not to be scared or shocked. Suddenly, a dude from the food department rushes into the room, declaring the whole raid a failure. Since Chansu is said to have failed, he mentions that Chansu would have to pay a penalty fee. Chansu immediately follows the lady's advice, and he mentions that the medicine provided by alchemy was what caused the mess. The dude argues that Chansu was the one who used it wrongly. He declares that they are going to be confiscating the water spirit and the weapon provided. Just then, Rohan throws his sword at the guy, but misses by an inch, thanks to Unsu showing up to drag him out of harm's way. The dude's eyes flash before his eyes, and Rohan mentions how pissed he is that he is making a mess of everything. Unsu tells Rohan that he should resort to greetings instead of violence since they have not even seen each other in ages. Unsu then urges the dude to leave because he has no right to be there, or else he wants to lose his dispatcher qualifications and get buried in lawsuits. The dude immediately apologizes for causing a ruckus, and he leaves. Unsu then walks up to Chansu to introduce himself to the dude. He apologizes that things got heated up on their first meeting, and he suggests that they wrap up business first. Unsu tells Chansu that the raid might have failed, but thanks to that, they have a chance at the potent spirit water. He is pretty sure that alchemy is going to go crazy when they learn about a water that lures a boss. Since Chansu is not going to need it, he suggests that Chansu sell it to them. Jiansu cannot believe that they are willing to pay money for puke. Unsu lets him know that they are going to mark the rate of success if he sells it, but if he doesn't, they are not going to. Unsu has not even finished saying this when Jiansu agrees to sell it. After this, Unsu lets Chansu know that they have equipment that can make life easy for him without having prior knowledge about alchemy. Chansu has no issue with this, but he is more concerned with making medicine. He is scared that this might cause a conflict of interest like the tea. Unsu smiles, telling Chansu that they will always welcome a competitor as long as they are competent. On their way out of the headquarters, Chansu reveals that he is not Rohan's disciple. Chansu then asks Unsu if he is cool with Rohan. Unsu is confused by this, and Chansu reminds him that Rohan threw a sword at him because of him. Unsu smiles, telling Chansu that this is nothing because Rohan probably doesn't even care. Chansu then tells Unsu that Rohan is obsessed with apples. He wants to know if there is anything that can be done, but Unsu tells him to give up because there is no way to convince Rohan. Just then, a driver pulls up beside them, telling Chansu that he is there to escort him, leaving Chansu confused. Apparently, Purity was the one who sent the dude to pick Chansu. On their way to Purity headquarters, Chansu is surprised that Purity would even ask to see him. He assumes that Purity is curious about Park, who is staying with him. Upon arriving at Purity, Chansu is surprised to see that it is dark, just like Sujin mentioned. Chansu steps out of the vehicle, and he is blown away by how massive and beautiful the Purity temple is. He admits that it is different from the others, and the driver urges him to follow him so he can escort him to the reception room. Moments later, Chansu and Rohan arrive at the room where the elders are waiting. The elders apologize to Chansu for calling him out of the blue. They assume that he is tired from his journey, and they offer him tea. One of them then asks Chansu about Park. Chansu then decides that he is going to tell the truth to avoid giving false hopes. Chansu mentions that there have been no improvements whatsoever. Another elder asks him about the development of the medicine, and Chansu reveals that it is slow, but there is a bit of progress. They ask him if there is the possibility for progress, and Chansu assures them that he is going to try his best. Suddenly, the elder with glasses on tells Chansu to stop the production of the cure, shocking Chansu. In fact, they want him to drag out the completion process for the medicine. Chansu reveals his confusion because he believes that Park is important to them. One of them then tells Chansu that it would be better if he joined them since making the medicine is difficult. They let Chansu know that they are going to give him double of whatever Park promised him. This is when it dawns on Chansu that he might have gotten himself involved in a troublesome issue because they appear to be wary of Park because of his influence. Chansu then tells the elders that he is just going to ignore what he just heard. Deep down, Chansu cannot believe that they expect him to trust people who would betray their own comrades. Chansu then stands up to leave, telling the elders that he hopes they all reach an amicable agreement. One of them screams at Chansu, telling him that purity is not the way it's supposed to be. He talks about the vulgar things that the apostles are doing, but Chansu reminds them that whatever is happening is also the will of their God. Just then, one of them tells Chansu that they are going to cancel the tea certification that they gave to him. Chansu is shocked when he hears this because they pushed him into a corner. Chansu starts thinking of talking to them, but he lets them know that going back on their words would basically make purity lose its credibility. Rohan then tells Chansu that it is time for them to leave. The elder in glasses screams at Chansu, telling him that he is going to regret his decision, but Chansu tells them to do whatever they like. After Chansu is gone, the elder in glasses apologizes to his comrades, saying his acting must have been lacking. However, they let him know that he tried his best because they all chose this plan since direct harm is not allowed. Since their third method is a failure, the group decides to move to plan 4. With no one in objection, they all decide to go ahead with the plan since they are all aiming to achieve their target. Apparently, they are going to make Chansu lose focus on creating the vitality potion by diverting his focus to other things. In short, they are planning to make Chansu a hero. Not long after this, Chansu returns to the territory, and the goddess rushes over to hug him. The others are also happy to see him, and they just wish he would get the communication skill quickly so that everything can become easy. Park then asks Chansu if he had a safe trip, and Chansu lets him know that he did, thanks to him protecting the block. Chansu then tells Park that he has something to tell him, and this is the fact that the elders are betraying him. Park doesn't want to believe this because he believes that the elders are just having a minor feud. But when Chansu tells him that the elders already instructed him to stop making the vitality potion, Park almost shatters into pieces. Park apologizes for this and tells Chansu that he will leave to sort everything, but Rohan tells him that it would be better not to go. Chansu mentions that after talking with Rohan, they have figured out that the elders are just trying to delay the development of the vitality potion. Chansu says it appears that the elders have no trick up their sleeve, but he doesn't know what it is yet. Park then says the elders care about their bodies and would not do something that is dangerous. He believes that the elders might just call Chansu to apologize, but Chansu doubts this because the elders are really proud. Park then asks Chansu what he plans to do, and Chansu reveals his plan to speed up the development of the vitality potion. Suddenly, a bright light starts shining from under Chansu's lower body. Park immediately assumes the worst, but Chansu quickly whips out the source of the light, which is the water spirit orb. Apparently, the water spirit is waking up from its sleep, and when the goddess sees this, she starts wondering what her apostles have gone ahead and done again. Just then, the water spirit emerges and jumps on the ground. To Chansu's surprise, it is not what he expected because it turned out to be a slime. Meanwhile, the Purity Elders' 4-stage plan is basically to conciliate, threaten, stall for time, and then make Chansu a hero. Chansu freezes up as he tries to understand why the water spirit is a slime. Even Park is surprised because he has never heard of a water spirit being a slime. Chansu then gets close to the slime to touch it, only for the slime to whip out its squishy hands, shocking Chansu. Nonetheless, Chansu figures out that the spirit can understand them. Park then congratulates Chansu, saying it is hard to tame spirits. Just as expected, the goddess subordinates start screaming at the slime to greet the goddess, since it is the latest addition to the team. Chansu then introduces the slime to the rest of the team, and it dawns on him that the slime doesn't have a name yet. As usual, Rohan comes up with one of his weird suggestions. He tells Chansu that they should name the slime Wadette, but Chansu immediately rejects the idea, and he decides to name the slime Spring. Park is pleased with the name, and he asks Chansu if it has any meaning. Chansu reveals that he took the name from the spring season, when plants grow fresh and lively. After he is done naming the slime, he suggests that they see what the slime can do. Just then, he notices that everyone on the team is hungry, and he decides to make food first. He tells Park to stay around because it is dinner time already, assuring him that he is going to prepare something delicious. In no time, Chansu gets down to preparations, and Park asks him what he is planning to make. Chansu replies that Park will find out very soon. When Chansu needs help with the apple, he throws it to Rohan, who slices it into tiny bits with his sword. Park cannot believe what he just witnessed because he never thought a sword could be used this way. Not long after this, Chansu finishes preparing the food. He made potato noodle pasta, potato pancakes, candy, braised, and a special apple pie for Rohan only. Park takes a bite of his dish and declares that it is very delicious. Park declares that he regrets not eating with Chansu all this time. Chansu lets him know that there is still plenty, so he urges Park to take his time. In fact, Chansu wishes Rohan could eat what they are eating too, but he is busy with his apple pie. Chansu then tries to feed Spring with his blessing, but Spring wants food, not blessings. Chansu then throws him an apple first, and Spring absorbs the apple in no time. Spring enjoys the apple so much that it starts blushing. Chansu lets Spring know that there is a lot, so he can always eat as much as he wants. Not long after this, Chansu visits the other block, and Yoonhook runs over to tell Chansu that they just created a path, so that he can easily cross over to the other block. Because of this, their efficiency has also increased. In fact, Hercules is working really hard, and everybody on the farm is trying their best. Chansu cannot believe how enthusiastic the bunch are even though they are prisoners. Yoonhook notices the slime, and Chansu introduces it to Yoonhook. Yoonhook and the others are shocked that Chansu has managed to tame a water spirit. Chansu commends Yoonhook's work so far and suggests that they take a break, so that they can see Spring's abilities. Chansu then tells Spring to show them its abilities. Spring then uses its power to create the nearby lake, shooting up a large quantity of water. Chansu is impressed by this, but the water ends up splashing in Night Sky's direction. Pissed off by this, Night Sky leaps towards Spring, but Chansu grabs it to pet it. He lets Spring know that Night Sky is gentle, but at the same time it might be scary when angry. Chansu manages to defuse the situation, and he tells the workers to return to work. After everything has settled down, Chansu continues playing with Spring, and he tells it to make some drinking water. Spring excitedly does this, and they are still having fun when Chansu notices that the system window is glitching. The occupancy rights are glitching, leaving him confused, and suddenly, Night Sky leaps onto his body. Before Chansu knows it, Night Sky bites him, ultimately stripping him of the rights to certain territories. Chansu grabs Night Sky when he sees this as he tries to understand why it did what it did. He remembers making life easy and convenient for the cat by providing everything it wants, only for it to repay him with something like this. While Chansu is busy crying about the rights that he lost, he notices that the cat is smiling. Instead of overreacting, Chansu decides to calm down because he knows Night Sky is a smart creature, and there must have been a reason why it did what it did. He notices that he lost occupancy rights, but at the same time, the system window has returned to normal. Just then, Park shows up and Chansu asks him where Rohan is. Park reveals that Rohan is currently training, and he asks Chansu if something is wrong because he looks absolutely dejected. Chansu then tells him what happened, and Park screams out, asking if he just encountered an occupancy parasite. Chansu is confused by this, and he asks Park what he means by this. He asks Chansu if he has been doing a closed-door training somewhere because he expects him to know everything. Park then explains that if a block gets infected, the moment one buys the occupancy rights to the block, the buyer also gets infected. If the infected buyer buys a right to another block, the new block also gets infected. If this process continues like that, it basically ends in total ruin. Park mentions that the infection multiplies infinitely and even stays hidden, which is why it is hard to notice if one is hidden. Park lets him know that by the time the infected knows what is happening, the infection will be complete. Chansu then asks Park what happens when a block is overtaken by the parasite, and Park reveals that the block loses its functions. Basically, buffs and debuffs disappear, and entrances get blocked. Park lets Chansu know that the blocks he has owned before would also get infected, and he urges Chansu to be careful. Chansu looks through his possessions and realizes that he still has 90 occupancy rights, which means Night Sky only ate the 10 affected rights. Chansu is glad to hear this because he is pretty sure that Night Sky would never have done that without a reason. Chansu walks up to Night Sky and provides more blessings for its home, thanking it. Nonetheless, Chansu is sad that all the blocks connected to the city are gone when he finally manages to open a path. Chansu then remembers that when he bought the occupancy rights near the city, there were other factions. Chansu then asks Park if there is an insecticide or something for the bug because he wants to know how they have dealt with the issue till that moment. Park mentions that there might be a solution, but there has not been a certain solution. Chansu then notices that Hamstel is disturbing him, and he shuns it off. Suddenly, he realizes that there must be a reason, and it suddenly dawns on him that the goddess might be the reason. Meanwhile, the goddess is currently missing Chansu because he has not been focusing on the goddess for a while. Her subordinates are comforting her when a black portal suddenly opens in the sky. A voice emerges from the portal talking about how he smells something nice that he would like to have. The goddess and her subordinates threaten the monster, telling it to leave or else it will regret it. The bird and the pig then charge toward the monster, and the goddess tries telling them to stay back because it is too much for them to handle by themselves. While charging toward the monster, the two imagine themselves transforming into their scary battle form. The two kick the monster, but they end up getting knocked down. Just when the goddess is about to sacrifice the points that Chansu has worked for, Rohan shows up to one-shot the monster. After destroying the monster, Rohan bows to the goddess, and she is surprised to see Rohan bowing to her. Rohan even sits with them, and he brings out an apple for them to eat. The chick and the pig wasted no time consuming the food. The goddess finally concludes that Rohan is a good person since he is Chansu's friend. Just then, Chansu comes rushing over, and with fear written all over him, he asks if anything happened. The chick wastes no time insulting him for leaving them alone. When Chansu heard that Rohan helped them, he bows to him, thanking him for saving them. Rohan then mentions that it was an occupancy parasite that showed up, but he cut it down already. However, Chansu lets Rohan know that he has not finished off the parasite, and this is just the beginning of their problems because the parasites will keep appearing from that moment on. Rohan is still munching on his apple, but when he hears this, his appetite vanishes.